I know what you're thinking, right? Supermarket whiskies. I can't buy whiskies from a supermarket. Where I am, I have to go to specialist retailers or whatever it is. But often if you're watching on the vPub and you're watching me and you're listening to me, supermarket whiskies is a term that you'll often hear me talk about. So I have to explain that. But I also have to explain why you still very much have access to the exact same supermarket whiskies that we do, but perhaps where you are, you don't define them as a supermarket whiskey. You don't have that definition there. So I want to talk about that tonight, but I want to talk about the value that they have, the pressure that's actually on their shoulders, the supermarket whiskies, and of course, prompt a discussion and try to discover which of them are worth seeking out. I'll see you in a second. Hello, whiskey folk. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thursday night. Welcome to the vPub. I hope you're all doing very, very well. This is a different Thursday night for me because not only have I got a guest joining us a wee bit later, but I've also got a guest in the vPub. He's busy backstage right now, and he's going through some blind drams that I've poured him so that we can bring him on a bit later tonight and participate in the session tonight. He is what we would say in these parts is a well-kent face. You will recognise this guy. He is a whiskey tuber, but he's here on leisure, and I've managed to drag him in to support me a wee bit tonight and have a bit of fun a bit later on. He's off screen right now enjoying some, I hope he's enjoying some drams. I've also got Whisky Geek Ben, who's joining us a wee bit later as well, who's got the same blind drams that my friend in the background is enjoying. And the two of them are going to come forward. They're trying this completely blind. They've no idea what's in front of them. It's typical vPub style. And they are all, the only thing that connects them is that I purchased all of these whiskies in a UK supermarket. Why is that relevant? Well, in the UK and other countries across Europe and elsewhere in the world, we have these price point whiskies. Sometimes you would refer to as being sold through supermarkets, some chains, multiples, whatever it is. But these are very much price sensitive. They're meant as mass market whiskies. So they are made with value is very much part of the equation. Now, does that mean that they have to compromise on quality? Well, potentially, if you were to put a cynical thought into it, you would think, yes, of course, because they're trying to bring the ABV down to 40%, the least amount of alcohol possible. It's easier, or it's more profitable, isn't it, to sell water? You could also argue that they're potentially going to sell something that's, a bit less precious, or something that's a bit younger too. So that's the kind of cheap budget, lower end, bottom shelf type whiskies that I'm talking about. But what I will say is that anybody that does buy whiskies in a supermarket has that luxury of knowing this is a supermarket whiskey. By definition, I've been able to buy this in a supermarket. So generally speaking, it's something that can be available and can be easily reduced in price. Where you are, you may not have access to that supermarket and you have to buy everything from a general retailer. You don't have that definition there. All of your Glenlivets are on the shelf together. All of your Lagavulins, all of your Lafroigs, all your Bamors, whatever it may be, they're all together. And it becomes harder to define which of these are designed for price point and which of these are a wee bit better quality, which of these deserve my time. So it's kind of going to talk about concepts like that tonight. But also, I think the biggest thing with supermarket whiskies and what I want to focus on tonight as much as possible is that idea that we are reliant on supermarket whiskies to bring more people into whiskey generally. That's quite a lot of pressure on the shoulder of those whiskies. Accessible, affordable whiskies that people can maybe try as their gateway whiskey, their first bottle, but more often than not, it's not going to be the case. They're going to have been introduced to whiskey through a tasting, through a distillery visit, through a friend, whatever it is, but they will use the supermarket whiskies to plot the route forward from there. So these whiskies in the supermarket, they've got a lot of work to do. They still have to be flavorful. They still have to be interesting. They still have to be good quality. And they need to be at a price point that doesn't scare people away from whiskey. Whiskey is a very expensive hobby, if you like, to get into. And as time is going on, it's becoming more and more expensive. Anyway, I can see that my guest has dropped into the background. So in order to keep both my guests not waiting too long tonight, let me jump in and welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk in the lounge and some of you dedicated Barflies too. I hope you're all doing very well. If you're trying to get my attention, please use the @Aquavitae or just type Aquavitae. It lights up in orange and I can see that you're trying to communicate with me. I'll do my very, very best to pick up your chat throughout tonight. Richard Agnew is here, checking in from Ontario, Canada. Fantastic, Richard. I'll give you a wee clue that my buddy in the background is also a fellow Canadian. That ties it down a wee bit. A YouTuber and a Canadian. Whiskey Weekend Dram is here. Harold, good to see you, my friend. I hope you're doing well. He's saying hi, Aquavitae. Stefan Novak is here. Fantastic, Stefan. Always a pleasure to welcome you in, my friend. Molasses is here. Mike, good to see you. No Nonsense Whiskey. Vin, speaker's way too loud. Okay, that's at your side, buddy, isn't it? I hope so. I think everything's okay my side. I hope people can hear me just fine. Buddy, I hope you're doing well. It's nice to see you, Vin. I've been thinking about you recently, and it's nice to have heard from you this week with good news. Max Kreitner is in as well from Austria. Good to see you, Max. I hope you're comfortable and on the couch next to Christina, and I hope Max Jr. is doing very well too, buddy. Contour Bushcraft is here. Good. My volume was way far up then. Oh wow! What's happened? Did I make a big noise or something? I'm suddenly nervous about the gain or something. No, everything looks okay. Hopefully it's your side. Che Francis is here. Che, good to see you. And it was certainly good to spend a bit of time with you last night as well. It was nice to shake your hand and raise a dram with you with everybody else. That was a good night we had last night, Che. Good to see you. And time for a dram. My friend from Portland, Oregon, Gregor McQueen is here. Pete Head is here. Ted Frank from the Netherlands, he was there in that company last night. He's doing a wee tour of Scotland right now, and I got to share a dram with Pete Head in Glasgow. It was fantastic, as I did with Graham Young, also a Canadian, but he's been probably home a week now. Hopefully the jet lag is over, my friend, and you're back in Canada and comfortable again. Good to welcome you into the vPub. Jerry Miller is here. Good to see you, Jerry. Whiskey with Molly. Ben, you were also there last night. There was quite a crowd of us out. Luna Aaron, fantastic, Luna. Good to see you. Go Habs, fantastic, Spiro. It's wonderful to see you, my friend. I hope you are keeping well. Donald Rance is here. Jason Bradford, Gordon Fraser, fantastic guys. Wonderful to see you. Whiskey Central, Sheila, of course. Sheila, I hope you're doing well. Cheers, everyone. Painting while watching. Excellent stuff. Does anybody know that Sheila is a fantastic painter? I have commissioned her for something very recently, and she did a fantastic job for us. There'll be more of that to follow. Head is here. Good to see you, Rolfie. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you in Isla later in the month, or it's actually going to be June, so it'll be next month, I guess. Dave Cummins is coming in from the States. Falsgraf from Germany. Superb. Good to see everybody. Tommy T is saying cheers. Cheers to you, Tommy, as well. Nice to welcome you in. Andy C. Greg's Whiskey Guide, Greg in Paris, good to see you, buddy. Sugar Kitty, good to see you, Sugar Kitty. Hope you're doing well. Andrew Piers, good to see you, Andrew. Evening, Roy, and all the Barflies, good evening to you. And Captain Bamis has made it live tonight. He's saying, salutations, Roy et al. Popping in for my customary stirrup cup. It's odd. There simply doesn't seem to be any such thing as an unremarkable vPub these days. Even the unremarkable ones, we make them remarkable for some oddball reason. You know, the internet's going to collapse on my side, or YouTube's going to decide to take my video down for some silly reason. Thanks for all your patience. That did happen last week on Friday. I suffered the same issue as lots of people. We just, for some unexplicable reason, had our video taken down and locked as private for an entire day. YouTube have profusely apologized and fixed it. But that didn't help clear up any of the confusion at the time. We still don't know why it happened, but it's fixed now, and that live stream with Billy Abbott from last week, everybody can get a hold of. Max Kreitner is here. Good to see you, Max. I've already welcomed you, buddy. Yes, saying good evening, Roy, this time. John Manning is here. Lee J. Brown, Alistair Gray, David Owen, saying good evening, Roy, and everyone. And Tom Verbruggen is saying good evening, Barflies, too. I will try and keep up with the chat. It's actually frozen. It just jumps down now as I almost miss a super chat. It looks like Hong Kong dollars from Justin Wan. Happy to catch another live vPub. Really excited to see what's to come. Well, I'll tell you what's to come, Justin. I'll raise a wee glass first, and just as I look at this thing, there's a wee clue here. I'm doing blind sampling tonight. Ben Whisky Geek has sent me 4 blind samples as well, but as I reach for this, I hope that you guys can see there's an odd color to this whiskey. It's almost got a kind of magenta hue to it, which would suggest to me something port or wine cask. If I hold up some white paper, you might see a wee bit better. I don't think this camera is going to pick it up. It's certainly making my face look really quite magenta, I notice. But there's a real pinkish hue to this dram. Justin, thank you for your dram and nice to welcome you in. I'm glad that you're catching it too. Now, because I had some company here tonight for setting up, I didn't spend nearly as much time with these blind drams as I should have. This is a flavorful enough whiskey. Oh my goodness, the finish is odd and it falls off a cliff at the end. This is a little bit tannic. There is certainly a suggestion of some kind of wine cask influence in there. Maybe not, doesn't taste like port, but could be. I think I'm going to go with wine cask on it. It's short. I think this is a young whiskey. I think a lot of these things that this whiskey has given me is indicative of what I would suggest is typical supermarket whiskey. And I know that sounds a wee bit negative. I'm hopeful that this is not going to be a negative vPub. There are good whiskies to be discovered in supermarket shelves too. But that one is a young whiskey, I think. And I think it's been put out there as a price point whiskey. Ben has done something different from me. He sent me 2 whiskies that are supermarket whiskies and 2 whiskies that he's decided are not. I think we'll ask Ben what his definition is of the other 2, but I think it's more kind of enthusiast friendly presentation. I've put green as my 3rd favorite of the 4. I put red as my 2nd favorite, despite it being very light, fresh, and also having quite a short finish too. I'm convinced this is fairly young, the red one here. This is just for posterity. I'm just declaring this now before Ben comes in. We haven't discussed these drams at all. I have no idea. So there's no kind of poker face issues happening. I think this is an okay whiskey, perfectly drinkable. It's not overly complex. It's pretty 2-dimensional and simple. But it's clean and it's bright. Quite sweet. It's very pale in color as well. This one is very pale. White wine pale. A little sweet on the finish. It was very spirit forward. Still quite spirity. Not too high ABV, certainly low 40s. I think it's okay. And I've put red as my number 2. The one I've put in last place is my number 4 from Ben, is the blue. And I've put a wee sad face for blue, and I put a wee sad face for the green as well, which was that one that I thought might be a wine cask. Blue has got something interesting there. There's an interesting flavor to it. There's even a chance that this blue one might not even be Scotch now that I'm tasting it. But it's young. It's very youthful. It's spirit forward, but also light on ABV. So blue is last place. So blue last, green second last. And the one I've put as my favorite is purple. And I wonder if I'm being led by cask here, because it's certainly the darkest in color. Could mean anything, especially when we're talking about supermarket whiskies. They're very often using color, sometimes liberal amounts of color. But this is the darkest, but it's also the richest on the palate. And it's also got the thickest mouthfeel. There's just more here. Still a little bit bitter. But it's an interesting bitter. So, yeah, I just picked on tonight. And a disclaimer, if I make a mess tonight, I've got a witness to back me up that we made the mistake of relaxing with beers, some whiskies, and very spicy pizza. We have tried the best we can to reset things. But generally, I would go with purple as being my favourite. So if I sort these into order, purple is my favourite. I think I went with red as my second favourite, blue last, and green second last. That might change. I reserve the right to change my mind throughout tonight, but that's where I'm sitting at just now. That's Ben's whiskies. That's just me giving it a quick summary. I've also sent to Ben and to my friend over in the background, who will be revealed very soon during the stream tonight. He's very quietly studying in the background and seems to be having a good time. Yeah. And I have been given them these drams. And so they don't get confused with what Ben sent to me. They're not by colour, they're by number, drams 1 to 4. And I'm going to sip along with them tonight. But I selected 4 whiskies that I bought in UK supermarkets. And the only clue I'm going to give anyone is that the cost of all 4 of these bottles of whiskey was less than £110 for 4 bottles. So it's about 150 of your Canadian. I'm getting a note here. Show the colour with Trenny C coasters. Oh, so there we go. This is the oldest coaster I have in my house. Okay, well, I'm getting lead from the background here, so just speak. It's okay. Well,
you can have to show the color
of the whiskey, like this.
Of the other side.
Does it work?
Oh, absolutely.
Right, can you see this? Some people say, my wife commented on this coaster tonight, and it's probably the thing that's been on my desk longer than anything. It's a Trenny C coaster. Can you see this? But can you see the state of it? It's actually been torn and sellotaped back together. I'm going to try and get us to focus, but it's probably not a good idea that it focuses on this because of how gross it is. But I love this thing. It just sits here. And this has been torn off and sellotaped back on. It's stained. It's been spilled on. It's abused and used. But this is not soiled. This is patina. This is something that's gathered use, and it's a disposable thing, and yet I like it, and it sits here all the time. So my friend in the background, giving us more clues of his identity, has suggested that I maybe use the Trenny C coaster to help show the colour of the drams. So that's that one that I said has got a real magenta hue to it there. Anyway, yes, there's another wee dram coming in, and I don't want to miss it. Potentially 2, actually. Right, Whiskey Works, Graham. You star, good to see you, Graham. I hope you're doing well. I'll celebrate my 25th month Barfly milestone another day, currently in the throes of the Rona. Oh my goodness, Graham, so sorry to hear. Though I'm looking forward to November now. So November, Graham, potentially you're talking about the Glasgow Whisky Festival. I hope that's maybe what you're thinking of. Buddy, I'm so sorry to hear that you're poorly, and I hope you recover quickly and fully. Thank you very much for the dram, my friend. Good health to you, literally. Slanchava. And I think that was the one. Oh, somebody else is celebrating a 28-month Barfly membership. Listen, the Barfly membership is the vPub is ad free. It's not monetized. I do not monetize any of the vPubs, especially useful for people picking up in the replay podcast style. It means that you don't have to sit through ads and things. But you need to thank the Barflies for that ability. It's a no-brainer for me now. There are so many Barflies that I never need to monetize the vPubs, and they keep it ad free, and they also get access to a little whiskey and channel exclusive emoji and things like that they can colour the live chat with, and also the comments afterwards. Thanks to all Barflies for their fantastic support, and thanks to you, Alistair, as well, my friend. I hope you're doing well up there in Speyside. Cheers. Good. Oh, I did miss another one. The Dram Experience has bought me a dram as well. Thanks, Aquaviti, for opening the vPub once again. Supermarket whiskies have their place, but producers should be careful how to position their brand. I think you can see in my head a wee bit here. I hope that what we're going to do is use these blind drams not as a test for the whiskies, not as a test for the tasters, but as a kind of blind, open-minded prompt to all things price point, all things supermarket whiskies. Whiskies becoming more and more expensive all the time. So inexpensive whiskies, cheaper whiskies become more and more important. They've got a more vital role as time goes on. There was a time when I couldn't imagine spending more than £40 on a bottle of whiskey. How ridiculous and naive that was back then. There was a time that, for me, cruising the supermarket aisles and filling the trolley with the next thing that I hadn't tried yet was just what I did to explore whiskey. Maybe a whiskey specialist was too intimidating for me. I just didn't feel like I had my head around it to do anything more than a supermarket aisle. So for us that have that outlet available, it's a very useful space. a wee bit like a duty-free spot. If you go through an airport, you can relax and look at what's available through duty-free, and there's some different dynamics happening there. But they are different whiskies. Supermarket whiskies, duty-free or global travel retail, GTR whiskies, are different from what you would find in a specialist. They are different releases. Unless you find yourself in a market like the US, in many states in the US or Canada, where everything is kind of just lumped together. And I think that it starts to get really quite cloudy, and you start to need you need to be well armed to tell the difference, to tell which whiskies are what. Anyway, my guests, and I'm going to welcome in my guest in a wee minute and just get chatting to him in a second. And then throughout tonight, there's going to be a natural moment, I'm sure, that I'll be pulling in my second guest, who's an impromptu vPub live participant tonight. It's quite exciting. Brown Whisky is saying, in Sweden, the only shop that sells alcohol is the government. They have no profit policy, so good prices usually, and about 1,500 different whisky in store or on order. It's amazing how all these different countries deal with this. So you in Sweden and in other Scandinavian countries, you do not have the ability to buy supermarket whiskies. I wonder how they manage quality and differentiation of value and that kind of thing. Whiskey Works Graham is saying, let's just say the Hallion Battalion are Glasgow bound for a certain weekend. I suggest, Graham, that's going to be the 12th of November. I'm looking forward to raising a dram with you and shaking your hand there. That would be amazing. Donald Rance is saying, all right, Barflies, back to work for me. Donald Rance is in Canada. He said, I'll listen to the replay on commute home from work. Slant you and take care, folks. Don't work too hard, Donald. And I hope you enjoy the replay, my friend. Graham Young, also a Canadian. I hope the Glenmurray Elgin Classic is one of those samples. Hard to reach past it. You know, Graham, we're not going to do any of this kind of... there's no intention to do any dirt throwing tonight, because there are really inexpensive whiskies out there that you can kind of forget the place that they have and the things that they can do. And a couple or three drams into them, you realize this is perfect. This is very good, fit for purpose whiskey. And I would say that the Glen Elgin Classic is one of those whiskies. Now, depending on what you sip it in contrast with, yes, it can start to show its shortcomings a wee bit. But not everybody everywhere are enthusiasts, and we're not all sipping in contrast and judging it all the time. We're just looking for a good whiskey experience. Doc is in. McCallan Finer Rare saying there was a time when you could hardly find a bottle above £40. Hey, Doc, now you're playing with us. That just shows how many years you've been buying whiskey. Even when I first got into whiskey, it wasn't that. There were more expensive ones, but I take your point. And that's kind of the inspiration for tonight. As prices become more and more out of reach for premium whiskies, for anything with a 15-year age statement or higher now, it's becoming more and more difficult as time goes by. We need to look at the offering that we have at the lower end of the market. Depending on where you are, you might term that a supermarket, or you might call it bottom shelf, whatever it is. But suddenly, life could potentially get a wee bit tougher. Belts are going to be pulled a wee bit tighter, and it means that we're forced to look at whiskies, and hopefully those whiskies are going to do us well and still be good quality products despite their price point. Connell McKenzie is in as well. Connell, it's good to see you. I hope you're doing well, buddy. I heard today that you are doing the Dramathon in October this year. So you're going to be running for charity, you and some of the other crowd from Ardnamurchan Distillery as well. You, Graham, Jenny, and at least 3 of the team from within the distillery as well. That's fantastic to hear. Good to see you, Connell. I hope you're doing well. Andy Walker is here saying, I'm still buying supermarket whiskey, but I am not a lot more picky now. That's great, Andy. Share what interesting whiskies that you have found that's worth it. And I guarantee I can predict one thing, that the supermarket has taught you not to pay the shelf price. You see it at full price, £39 as an example, and you say, okay, that's fine. I know that that's there as RRP, but you know to wait. And in a few weeks' time, you're going to see a discount on that. And that £39 whiskey is suddenly going to be £29 or £26. The way that supermarkets treat products is not very good for products, I think, especially whiskey. Because what we know that's not a £39 whiskey. But there's an argument that it's probably not a 26 or a 29 pounds whiskey either. The truth of the price is somewhere in between. But because of the pricing model these large multiples use, it sometimes gets a little bit, you're teaching your customer not to buy at the higher price. So that means that the distilleries are then negotiating their distribution deals or supply deals are based on the bottom price. And I think, I'm going to argue for a lot of whiskies, that they're being undersold. I don't think it's healthy. I don't think it's a good thing. Whisky Weekend Dram is saying, we have a shop next to the supermarket to sell the supermarket drams, not allowed to sell spirits in the supermarket. I understand that as well, Harrow. If I remember well, I think you're in the Netherlands. So what we're saying is that you have, it's a bit like a lot of the setup in America. You can buy beer in a supermarket, but you go into a spirit store for spirits. It sounds maybe something similar. Luna Aaron saying the Glen Murray range in supermarkets is really good for the price. And Eric Waite is here. Good to see you, Eric. How you doing, buddy? Supermarket whiskies are a crapshoot unless someone you know has reviewed it. I did a series on independent Isla bottles from Total Wine and more. Some were good, others not so much. And it doesn't need to be a reviewer like Eric Waite, like Trenny C, like Ben Whisky Geek, or like Roy Aquavite. We can work as a community to find and separate the wheat from the chaff, if you want, but celebrate the good from the bad, celebrate the interesting from the boring. And that's kind of what we're going to try and do tonight. We can't do that. We're only going to have, I've got 4 whiskies from Ben. I've given him 4 different whiskies. So we've got 8 that we can talk about. There might be some overlap. Who knows? We might have sent each other the same whiskies, although I've gone through and maybe not. You never know. We will be talking about specific expressions and things, but I think generally, as a community, we're able to cover it all, especially when we find something that's particularly good. And I've sent Ben 1 or 2 that actually I keep going back to and I keep saying, this to me is particularly good. Remember that it's all blind tonight as well. Sugar Kitty is saying, in the US, every state is different. A few states allow it. In some states, you have several different places to go. There is no consistency here. It's almost like 50 little countries, isn't it? Falsgraph is saying cheap prices can often be better managed by huge distilleries. Sad for the small and new ones. Well, Falsgraph, that is, I think, you're right. But there is a bit of a myth element to that because there's a couple of new small distilleries that is stepping up with new whiskey and able to go toe-to-toe with the very, very aggressive, let's say, pricing of some of the big players, and I wonder how they're doing it. The Dramlog is saying, good to see you, Dramlog. He's saying the only supermarket whiskey on my shelf is a Talisker 10. As some supermarkets here in Denmark often put bottles on sale, there can be some great occasional bargains. Perfect little example, Dramlog. And I think we need to talk about this. There are supermarket whiskies that you can buy in supermarkets, but you can also buy in other outlets, specialist retailers, online retailers, duty-free, etc., everywhere, but you can also buy them in supermarkets. I'll say Talisker 10 is one of those, as well as other Talisker expressions, Lagavulin 8, for example, Lagavulin 16, Lefroy, quite a few expressions from Lefroy, even Ardbeg 10 and things. But there are ranges that you tend to only find in supermarkets, or let's say they are much more associated with bottom shelf supermarket type outlets. Anyway, my friend's in the background. He's waiting patiently. Let's say bring him in. He's built up a bit of a reputation, has our Ben. Sorry, I'm talking. I just said my friend from Canada who's in the background studying away suddenly jumped up and went, "Oh, I'm on." I said, "No, he's got plenty of time to relax. I've got a friend in the background here." It's been sitting there in the background. Now, the guy that's coming on to join us, he's dialing in remotely tonight. Is he's got a bit of a reputation, if I'm honest, and that is the amount of times that he's been on in the past on the vPub doing blind challenges. His insight has been fascinating and scarily and uncannily accurate. That doesn't need to be the case tonight. What we're hoping is that Ben is just able to look into these drams, to study them for a wee bit and tell us what his opinion is. Ben, if you're good to come in, give me a thumbs up, buddy. Fantastic. Welcome, Ben. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, thank you. Yourself?
Fantastic. Listen, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to raise a glass, an indiscriminate glass. I'm just going to pick up one of these glasses and I'm say congratulations on the new arrival, my friend. You're looking particularly bright and fresh considering having a new baby in the house.
Yep.
Our friend in the background is raising a glass as well. Congratulations. I trust everyone is healthy, buddy. Well done.
Cheers, guys. We are doing surprisingly well. I think we've looked out with both of them so far. He's sleeping reasonably well, 3-hour stints at the minute. So touch wood, that carries on and we're surviving pretty well.
I cannot tell you how excited I am that he was born on my birthday too. I was just waiting on him, being called Roy Clarkson. That would have been like Whisky Geek Junior. That would have been amazing, fantastic.
We did consider it. We did weigh it up. We couldn't.
Of course you did. Of course you did.
We couldn't get used to the idea of calling a baby Roy. It just wasn't a baby name.
Yeah, Roy. Roy is very much an old man's name, absolutely, buddy. And it's become more. Say that. It's become more fitting as the years have ticked by, buddy. But it's good to hear that everybody's doing well and everybody's healthy. And it's good that you can join us tonight because I appreciate that time is it's a bit tricky right now unless they're both sleeping.
Yeah, fingers crossed. That remains the case. They did go down and a quick sprint to the train station, but we're all good. We're all good now.
Good, fantastic. Define for me, buddy. You live in the UK. You live in the same island as I do. Define your interpretation of a supermarket whiskey.
Well, when you first messaged me, my initial thought was basically any whiskey you can buy in the supermarket.
Yeah,
but that is kind of obnoxiously vague. And given that there are, in my opinion, some cracking drams, some belters out there, it kind of doesn't serve a purpose necessarily from an analytical point of view. So I was more thinking your access point, your entry level type of whiskies, your stepping stones, and that fed in nicely to kind of how you categorized it. I thought you may have been being intentionally coy, so I didn't pry into it too deep. So we went for presentation as our kind of key markers, the 40 to 43%ers versus the 46 plus, and the possibly synthetic versus the natural, that kind of interpretation. But for me, supermarket whiskies, they're something that I have paid a lot of attention to. They're something that are very accessible to me, more so than pretty much any other category, because the only brick and mortar stores near me that sell whiskey are supermarkets.
So if you're away from a specialist, I get it. Yeah.
But for me, as part of my journey, when I really got stuck into whiskey, because they were the only access points, the only places that I could pick up a whiskey, and I didn't bother to look online, I guess. That's where I started. And so they were my stepping stones. They were the whiskies that taught me what I did and didn't like. And a lot of those bottles have lingered on my shelves for four plus years because they very quickly moved on from stepping stones to a burden, shall we say. They sat there and they lingered there because they were so easy to reach past, because as my education or my journey or whatever developed, there was other stuff to drink, stuff that I engaged with more. So the last, let's say, 9 months since I came back from that little break I took, I've been intentionally kind of focusing on them to get them shut to the shelves. And as you may be able to see behind me now, the shelves are looking nice and stocked. I did quite a fun live stream a week or so ago, last weekend, I think, where we picked 25 odd whiskies to crack open and go on the shelves. So just as you asked me, I'd basically just got shot of most of my supermarket whiskies. So my selections were a little bit thin.
But that's okay. And I noticed recently, specifically, I had your name next to this topic for a long time, because I noticed that recently on your channel, you've been specifically reviewing these styles of whiskies and declaring that they've been open for a long time and you've been reaching past them. So it's time to get the review done and kind of usher them out and make space for something else.
Yeah.
This is probably at the core of what we're going to talk about tonight. There's a huge burden on these whiskies that they do have to have enough definition of flavor and enough interest to help people do exactly what you talked about there, to bring you into whiskey in an unintimidating way so you can just please yourself, grab something that you haven't tried before out of pure curiosity, not be exposed financially too much, but still have enough flavor and interest in order to make you want to try and explore a wee bit more. And if they've done their job well, maybe explore more from that brand, that distillery, that profile, style, category, region, whatever it may be.
Exactly. They need to have that little hook to entice people to buy another bottle, or even buy the same bottle again, but something that lands with people, opens that kind of magic door, and leads people down the avenue.
Exactly that. Listen, there's over 400 people in. So what I'm going to do is drop in a link so that anybody watching, now I know my buddy over the back is not going to be able to see this. I know that, Ben, you're not interested in seeing this. You've already done your assessment of things, but you're going to be able to click on that link. And what you'll be able to see from that link is you'll be able to click on it and see what the 4 blind whiskies, define them as supermarket whiskies if you want, but I will define them as something I bought in a supermarket. At least 2 of them are something that is actively designed as a supermarket whiskey. And that's one of the things I want to talk about. But you'll see what I've sent Ben blind. I'm not treating Ben tonight. I'm not spoiling him, let's say. I'm sending him things that are on theme. You've got a fairly good understanding of what I've sent you, Ben. You've been through them. You've studied them, and I know that you studied them before tonight. So you've done your... Hold that up. Can you just hold up one of your little flavour maps? Because I think they're amazing. In fact, I've got it here. Might be able to see it in my camera too, although it's not filled in. I think Ben should start to commercialise this. You need to monetize this thing. If it's not going to focus, my camera's not going to focus. But this is a little copy. You've got the colour chart down the bottom. And each of these axes represent fragrant, fruity, unctuous, woody, peaty, off notes, grassy, cereals, and obviously there's it breaks down more granular beyond that. But what's nice about using it this way is it builds a shape, and it gives you a shape of a visual representation of flavour, which is, I think, is a really cool thing, and it's something that's been associated with the Whisky Geek channel for a long time. What have you sent me?
How so? We're keeping it vague at the minute, right? I want to.
No, well, I just, yeah, absolutely. Don't tell me what the whiskies are. Well, I'm just, because I wonder, have you sent me 4 whiskies that you've purchased in a supermarket, or because you just knew what the topic was, and we were going to exchange 4 samples.
So I've sent you 2 that I did buy in supermarkets, and I've only ever bought in supermarkets, and 2 that I bought from online retailers. Wouldn't surprise me if one of them did turn up in a supermarket, possibly.
Okay, good.
The other one definitely wouldn't. I guess I had, I won't say an agenda, but a little bit of a bias here. These are things that I have my own thoughts on, and I kind of wanted to verify with you. So that... Are
you talking about the ones I sent you?
No, that I've sent to you.
Okay, all right, okay.
Things that... So... part of the thing that really draws me into whiskey and makes my channel fun is how subjective people's appreciation and opinions are. Sure. And so these are things that I've heard different opinions on, and I don't necessarily agree with, and they seem to be common opinions, possibly, or vocal opinions. And so the chance to bounce them off of you in a blind was appealing to me, and it fit quite well into this theme. They are all whiskies that I think have their merits. They are all whiskies that I have enjoyed, and I wouldn't be particularly hesitant to pour for myself. But there are some of them that I would say are possibly flawed.
There's a couple. Flawed is a different one, but I love this idea. I love what you're talking about, because what we're doing is we are the less we script this, the more we are going to tease out the discussion of interpretation and subjective opinion of the whiskies in front of us. I think it's perfect. I sent you 4 whiskies that I was just curious to get your take on, in order to prompt certain discussions about different attitudes and different ways to approach this supermarket price point, mass market selling of malt whiskey, specifically malt. I'm not letting any... That's not a spoiler to suggest I've not been sending you blends here. I've sent you malt whiskey. I think that there's producers come at it from different directions, and the idea is that I've given you 4 that will be able to tease out a discussion through each one about different strategies to go through supermarket. Some of them are good, some of them are interesting. 2 of them I am an advocate of that I've sent you. I like and I recommend. One of them I'm less in love with, but I accept that it's good and it seems to be well loved out there. And one of them I'm trying for the first time tonight with you. I literally poured it from a fresh bottle to send to you. I've poured it for my friend in the background here. I know everybody's like, who's the friend in the background? And I've poured it for myself. It's the first time I'm going to be drinking it. So let me go first then. Let me just take your 4 out of the way and we'll discuss your 4. And then what we'll do when we discuss the 4 that I've sent to you is after we get your summary, Ben, we'll bring in my other guest as well and we can relax together. I've been through these. I didn't give them the time that I wanted because I was entertaining a little bit tonight. That makes it sound like I was working, but I was actually just hanging out and enjoying myself. But I did give it a few minutes before I went live. And there's a couple of whiskies here that are fairly straightforward to me. The one that's most interesting to me is the purple one. And it's because there's just a bit more density to it. There's a bit more complexity. There's a bit more richness out of it. I think there's more cask involvement here. But purple to me, it's sweet. I think it's a crowd pleaser. I think it's intended to be nice and easy. I would place it at 43 to no more than 46% ABV. But I think it's a nice, easy drinking whiskey, an enjoyable malt whiskey, I would say. Red, I put in second place. Red is bright and alive and fresh. It's kind of gone a bit more floral. It's all more hayfield. It's crisp. But there's a lot of sugar, and that sugar specifically is not coming from oak. I think the sugar is coming from spirit. It's a spirit-led thing. But again, it's nice. I'm enjoying red. I like red. It's clean. The finish falls short. So we've got kind of saccharine bitterness on the finish. This is all about the spirit. Even that finish tells me, it reminds me very much of new make. This is either in a very quiet cask or it's quite young spirit. But I like this whiskey. I like it. Green, things start to go a wee bit pear-shaped at green. It's still okay. I think that green has got third place over fourth because there's at least interest here. There's flavour. You can tell by the colour that there's definitely a wine cask or some kind of influenced cask here. I'm going to look at your face now and see how your poker face is. But there's a magenta hue to this. Can you see that, right? It's very obvious.
Yeah, the very first thing that I noticed when I poured this was it was slightly pink. And
Yes.
It kind of took us aback a little bit because I wasn't expecting it, but it's definitely an unusual colour for a whiskey.
Yeah. And like anything, we're playing with our brain as much as our senses here. If I see that colour and I'm looking for a tannic lick, and there's a tannic lick to this whiskey. There's some pink tart sharp fruits to it, but it's also quite thin. There's not a lot of depth to it. There's not a lot of flavour. It's fairly simple. Again, I think 40% ABV. I would put this in the realms of this is perfect fodder to me on the palate as a typical kind of supermarket whiskey. Not offensive, not faulted in any way, just a wee bit simple. The blue one in fourth place. It's got a nice mouthfeel after the thinness of the green one, but it stops there. There's a soapiness to it. I don't know what it is, but this got I didn't. The first thing I wrote for this in notes was an upside downy face. So it went to number 4 very, very quickly. The blue one did, and I don't know. And I know that the folk that are watching and tuning in tonight are going to be keen to know what I'm talking about. The 4 of them again. So how about we do it one at a time? I've written the notes I got out of this was it's super soft on arrival. It switches to a sharp finish. It's not as sharp as it was at the start. It's been sitting in the glass for a wee bit. I've said it's the weakest on flavour. And I think that the flavors that I do get from it, I'm looking for a flavor that I enjoy, and I want to go back for another sip to find it again, and I'm not getting a lot of that. I'm finding that one a struggle generally, but it does have a nice mouthfeel, and that's the only positive I can say. If you wanted me to make any guesses here, purple is making me think something in the realms of RN10, but I don't know if you can buy that in a supermarket where you are.
That's a compliment one from you.
Red is drawing me somewhere into the realms of a fairly young indie bottler, something like a single-digit age statement, maybe Highland or potentially Speyside Distillery. Now the green is drawing me towards something like a Glenmurray. Usually I can pick out. I don't know if there's any Glenmurray on this tonight. Maybe a Glenmurray Elgin Classic, or maybe a Tamnavulin wine finished Tamnavulin or something. And finally, I know we said it wouldn't be a guessing game, but we've got to give it a wee try.
Yes,
and the blue one has me fairly flummoxed. But let's say that. Oh dear, thrown it at myself. Are all
You're
of
just
the
trying
whiskeys...
to get rid of it?
Yeah, I'm trying to get rid of it. Are all the whiskies we have tonight Scotch?
All the ones I've sent you are definitely Scotch.
So in that case, the summary is that the blue is the closest thing to non-Scotch. And I don't love it. I'm really hoping that that's not anything. So there we go. What's the best thing to do? You want to ask me any more questions on it before we take yours out of the way, or?
Oh, sure. We can tease it out, make it a little bit more
Go
fun.
for it.
Whisky Geek style. So, a couple of comments. Purple is something that I've heard you say you're not so keen on in the past, and I thought it was a little unfair. I think the context that you said it in was perhaps in a previous product range from that distillery.
Good.
Possibly kind of a heritage opinion, if you like. I have bought many of those bottles, gifted many of those bottles, and I've never heard a complaint. Just like you say, that's a crowd pleaser. That's an easy drinking, sweet, friendly crowd pleaser. Red, I included specifically because I thought that you might quite enjoy it, going for that spirity exploration, the quiet cask, the gentle approach, which is kind of leading you away. You're already along the lines of an indie bottler, so that one, you're fairly safe in saying it's not a supermarket whiskey. Blue is something that I have heard a lot of people talk about in high regard. A lot of people recommend. A lot of people say
Blue.
like, yes. And
Am I one of the people?
I don't recall. I know certainly in like Facebook groups and that kind of thing, it's held in high regard, and I just don't get it. I've reviewed it before. I've had it in comparisons before. It's not. I don't know. It just like you doesn't tick many boxes for me.
I taste soap every time I go in.
Well, I'm getting fuzzy malt. It's restrained. There's a hint of maritime. There's a green hint, and like you say, a kind of mineral, stony soapiness.
I'm curious. So green, did you summarize green?
Green, you have second or third pour of that bottle. I opened that one and thought, wow, this one is going in a direction I really get behind. There is one thing that really stands out to me that really interesting. You haven't mentioned peat at all.
No, it's peaty now.
And the first thing that hit me straight away was this coal tar peat, but then a weird transition onto the palate. All of that was suppressed, and it was sweet, and it was this cask-driven sweetness, and it was a weird transition, almost like an on-off switch. It was binary, and then in the finish, all this peated element started to bubble in again, and so there was elements of it was that intrigue that made it stand out to me and made it interesting. But I have only had a couple of drams of this, and each time I have so far, I've been really impressed and really enjoyed it.
Right, now I'm curious. Now we need the reveal. Especially the purple. I've been negative towards, and you don't. And the blue is I put purple first. Blue, I've been negative towards it tonight, but it's popular amongst a lot of opinion, which is absolutely fine. The more debate that we have around this subjective thing that we love, the better. It's absolutely fine. And the two that are in the middle, well, let's just share it with us, Ben. Let's get these four off the table. What are they?
Leading into what I want to do with what you've sent me, first, you reckon red is non-supermarket. Which of the others would you say were or weren't supermarket?
For me, well, before your summary, if I'm honest, before your summary, I would have said the supermarket ones for me probably were going to be purple and green. But after your summary, I'm kind of maybe thinking that purple and blue. But yeah. I am purely guessing. There is nothing, I think the takeaway there is that there is nothing jumping out about these that any particular one is clearly a supermarket presentation.
And that was kind of intentional. I picked whiskies that were going to spark an interesting debate because I think there is a lot of good stuff available in supermarkets, and I didn't want to come here and go, it's all trash, buy the enthusiast stuff. I think you miss out on quite a lot of good whiskey if you do that. So I've tried to pick stuff that is either interesting to me because of opinions or held in high regard, but likewise, genuine enthusiast whiskies that are close to what you can get from supermarkets. Let's try and make it more interesting.
Good. Well, interesting is a word. Interesting is a word. Absolutely.
So,
tell us.
Blue is the Old Pulteney 12.
No.
Yep. And it's the old bottle. It's I did a blind comparison of this versus the newer bottling, the newer presentation, and I found this to be the superior of the two. And I still don't particularly like this one. I'm not particularly fond of this one. But
I'm an advocate. I'm an Old Pulteney advocate. I've talked about it regularly. And I talked about this to my friend who's in the background. We're going to get him on screen in a wee minute. I think I've talked about it to you, in the past, Ben. One of the great things about blind tasting is that it strips away all the preconceptions and all the things that your brain is expecting to taste a lot of things that you've been told what to taste and maybe previous experiences have tasted. So you're looking for it again. You don't have that. But it also strips away the ceremony, the expectation. So if you are looking for something positive, your brain can give it to you. And if you do it blind, your brain doesn't give it to you and it can take away some things. But if the things are false anyway, I think that that's better. However, I'm not trying to make any excuses for myself or anything. I think that is stunning because some of these I've poured extra from. So the red one I've poured a wee bit more out of. I've only got a wee drop left. But the one I have the most of is the blue because it's the least enjoyable. By some way, it's soapy in this glass. So
I've found, obviously it's 40%. I've found some sources that say it is coloured. Whisky DE says it is coloured. At 40%, it's probably chill filtered. I'm pretty certain it is.
Absolutely, it will be, yeah.
That is the oldest of the whiskies that I've sent you.
Old Pulteney 12, and I put it in last place. So there you go.
And for those in the UK, that is about £24 regularly for me.
But we know not to pay the £35, £38 for it because we know that it's going to be a £25 whiskey.
Yeah, exactly.
Terrific. That's really good. That's really interesting.
So your third...
Speak. It's okay. We speak.
$100 where I'm from.
So where my guest is from, he's paying $100 Canadian for that Old Pulteney 12.
Wow.
This is an important discussion to have, honestly. Okay, buddy, continue.
Your third favourite was green then?
Yes.
Okay. So
this is the pink one.
Yes. The green coloured sample, which is a pink whiskey.
Yeah, a green dot, but it's a pink whiskey. And the more I look at I knows it now, how could I have not picked up? I mean, it's not overtly peated. It's just there is peat now, and it's quietly coming through. But because I saw the colour, I'm just all I was searching for from then on in was this port or wine, right? So yeah, put me out of my misery. Come on, what's green?
So one producer, which I think does supermarket whiskies right, because they very rarely compromise on their core principles, is Distell. And so this Leche
Wow.
Sinclair series, this is Spanish. It's ex-bourbon and then finished in Spanish Rioja, 46.3%, natural, no chill filtration, no colouring. This is a whiskey I've really engaged with. You can see I've not had much of it, but I've really engaged with it so far. I've never seen this in supermarkets, but Distell do a lot of supermarket whiskies, the likes of the Bunnahabhain Styradar, the likes of even the 12-year-old from Bunnahabhain is regularly there. Deanston gets a good representation as well. Haven't seen Tobermory or Leche, but it wouldn't surprise me if it started to show up possibly because they have strong.
In our supermarkets here in Scotland, we do get Lechic 10. We do get Tobermory 12. They're never super deep discounted, but they do occasionally drop below the £30 mark. And they're usually the ones to look out for because, as you say, natural, 46.3% ABV. We're getting a bit more whiskey in there, a bit more intensity, a bit more flavour. It's the ones to look out for. There's nothing that they've not been chill filtered, and it says on the label, so we get the texture, all of these great things. So that's amazing to me. I've put Old Pulteney last, and I've put a Lechic, which is one of my wee darling distilleries. Although it's an odd Lechic, I'll be honest with you, it's a wee bit odd. And I've put it in third place.
But you got to put this one in context. This cost me £29. £5 over that. How much more engagement? For me, it's night and day.
That's why it's got third place over the fourth, because of flavour, because of density. Well, is there any age statement on that Lechic at all?
No.
Fully non-age statement? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Nothing that I've seen anyway. Now, your second favourite was red.
Yes.
Second favourite, you're right in saying it's an indie. It's not as young as you perhaps think it is. It is natural colour. It's non-chill filtered. I mean, looking at the colour of it, there is no room for any falsehood in that, I don't think.
No.
Distillery I know we're very close to, you in more ways than one. This is a Glengoyne from Douglas Laing's Provenance series. It's a 10-year-old, 46% natural.
Wow.
But it is all refill bourbon.
Now, Provenance is one of the entry-level ranges from Douglas Laing. These are always very well priced. It's still natural, still great presentation, but affordable whiskies. But you're not going to find it in a supermarket, but you are going to find this is a good, strongly priced budget whiskey and a specialist, right? How much did you pay?
I think it was around the £30 mark. I am a big advocate for Glengoyne from bourbon and refill bourbon because they have a fantastic spirit. And whilst I love their core range, I love the sherry influence, it's also magical without that. And they don't really release whiskies along this line without.
Well, the only one that had any kind of creamy bourbon showing at all was their 15, which has since been discontinued.
I've got a bottle of that tucked away.
Yeah.
Not yet explored that one. I'm pretty sure I bought it on the back of your recommendation, to be honest.
That's a treat whiskey to have. An ex-bourbon, 10-year-old Glengoyne, spend a bit of time with it, get my head around it a bit more. The notes I made for this was, I said it was light and fresh, saccharine sweet on the finish. I thought I put a question mark against a Glenmurray. I thought it could have been a Glenmurray, but maybe I didn't believe it was an official Glenmurray. I thought it could have been something 7, 8, 9 years old, that kind of thing. Good. That's a nice one. A nice, interesting pick.
So there was
nice contrast pick.
Overlap in what we were getting from that whiskey as well. The candied sugar, I get quite a nice white pepper to it. It's creamy with some orchard fruits. It ties in nicely with that sweetness, and some honey and possibly almond in there as well. But it's all in the subtleties and those. Because it's so quiet, it gives you a lot of room to explore, which is what I enjoy from this kind of presentation. But that brings us up to Purple, which was your favorite.
Yes. Okay. This is going to be the thing.
Purple is a distillery that I've always been enthusiastic about. I intentionally held off on trying any of their whiskies until I had visited the distillery. So my first experience of their core range or any of their whiskey was at the distillery, which is bound to make you a little bit biased. But ever since, every time I come back to it, it's done well. This is one that I came back to the community and was quite positive about a couple of times and just didn't get any agreement. There was no consensus, and there was a lot of, particularly people who'd been drinking for longer than I have, in the whiskey game for longer than I have, kind of going, not so sure about that distillery. They've done a lot wrong in the past.
What you're talking about is the P word, right? Preconception, right?
Yeah. So this is a Tullibardine 228 Burgundy finish.
Excellent.
It is 8 years old, and then a year to a year and a half in their finishing
the
cap.
228, sorry, I spoke over you there. The 228 is a wine finish, right?
Burgundy.
Tullibardine.
I've always called it Tullibardine.
Tullibardine is fine, but now that you know it's Tullibardine, there's my friend in the background going, "Oh, Tullibardine." So Tullibardine, that's amazing. There are friends of mine. Derek Nesbitt is one of them at the Glasgow Whisky Club, who is a huge advocate of Tullibardine. Thinks that people need to sit up and pay attention to it. I recently bought the Tullibardine the Murray, which was an orange bomb for me. It was wonderful. I loved it. I raved about it on the vPub. I've since got to enjoy it a lot more. For me to have picked that 228 tonight, because it's not one I would pick. It's not an age statement as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not one I would normally pick. I'm also soft on them recently because I think I just managed to beat Doc on an Is It a Space Side with a Tullibardine. I pulled it. That's good because I put it at the front out of 4 whiskies. This is nothing scientific about this. It's a very small sample. But what it's done is it's given me, I've put that ahead of a very naturally presented, very clean Glengoyne. And the reason I put it ahead of the Glengoyne is because of the flavour depth that was in it. What's the presentation on that, though?
43%. I cannot find definitively whether it's coloured or whether it's chill filtered. There is varying opinions online. Some people say it is coloured. Some people say it isn't. There's nothing on the bottle, but that doesn't.
If they don't put it on the bottle, we're going to start to we have to just assume
that it is.
Yeah.
But for the amount of cask influence that is there, I don't think that the caramel colouring is doing the heavy work. There is probably a lot of natural colour to it, maybe topped up for consistency.
I agree. I don't get anything. I think this is a crowd pleaser. I think it's a good whiskey. I think it's full. I think that I would have placed it at 46% ABV. There's enough mouthfeel there at 43 to carry that. I think this is an interesting thing. I think it's really interesting. I've put Old Pulteney 12, which I would have recommended strongly forever. Normally, you would get a wee bit of the kind of Old Pulteney traits that you're looking for, that salinity. You mentioned rocks and mineral. I know I didn't get any of that tonight. The soapy thing was the most prominent. I'm going to let my friend try a wee bit of this and see if he agrees.
That's right now.
Yeah,
soapiness is one of the flavors I always get from Old Pulteney.
You always get soapiness.
From the 12.
That and we have not conferred in any way. I've not let you try any of these drams, so that's a completely independent thing. But I don't. In that case, I don't need to let you try this tonight. I mean, honestly, buddy, I'm getting soaped from this tonight, and I've never had soap from Old Pulteney 12 before. Old Pulteney 12 was one of the whiskies I was going to send to you to talk about this very thing, because where is the hunting ground of Old Pulteney 12? The supermarket shelf, right? It's and I feel. I don't. Anyway, we'll get on to talking about why and the mass market and the price points and things. Old Pulteney 12 should not be a £25 whiskey, but it is. Now the RRP was way higher than that, but I never have paid more than £25 for Old Pulteney 12. It's incredible. That's incredible. Anyway, fascinating. I'm humbled. Yeah, go ahead.
My intention was not to trick you at all. I am really quite positive that there's kind of been a confirmation here, because I think Old Pulteney is a key example of these preconceptions. You listen to someone say, I like Old Pulteney, it's got a bit of maritime tang. The presentation, the marketing says, oh, we're on the coast, there's some sea air to it. And then I go to it and I just can't find it. I've never understood the hype behind it, because I find it to be shallower than people have been told to expect.
For years, I've been drinking, I mean, I don't have an Old Pulteney 12 on the shelf right now, but for years it's been a stalwart, solid. If there's nothing else interesting in the supermarket, it's like, okay, there's an Old Pulteney 12, it's on offer, I'll pick it up, it's okay. I have never tasted an Old Pulteney and get soap before.
Right.
My friend in the background certainly confirms that you had, and I'm telling you that's the overwhelming flavour tonight. Having
think
said
it
that,
was.
it took me to, you had to lead me to the peat and the lead chick. I think what's letting the lead chick down is probably it's a young spirit. I think it's been brought on by Cask here to try and bring it on in order to make that price point. How much did you say you paid?
29.
Yeah, £29. I think lead chick is, yeah, I think.
Tully Bardin's another one where the RRP on that bottle, I think, is £45. I have never spent over 28, I don't think, on that bottle. And at 28, it's a steal. At £45, I pause for thought. There is so much competition at 45.
So much competition at £45.
Yeah.
The Dram Log is saying, Passion, my congratulations to Ben with his newborn. My own 60-year-old son is sleeping in my lap, and I'm going to leave for now. Enjoy the rest of the vPub. You are going through that right now, that comfort of that child in your lap. Nobody can stay awake. Time for the drama scene. Is the other guest calling in on a dial-up modem? The audio is questionable. No, he's not actually supposed to be here. So it's a cardioid mic, Gregor. So I'm in front of it and he's behind it. So you'll be able to hear him fine very, very soon. Whiskey.de says no colour and non-chill filter for the Tullibardens. Well, I would say that you could have me convinced of that, Doc, on the mouthfeel, but at 43%, if they're doing that, fantastic. There's more discussion to be had on this chill filtration thing. Anybody that's interested to talk a wee bit more about that, look at the Dramface article by Hamish that went out last Sunday. I'm talking about the truth about Glendronach. It's a fantastic article, but it raises a lot of questions. And I want to do a bit more digging into that whole topic. But you're absolutely spot on. Doc, thanks for shouting that out on whiskey.de. Obviously, in Germany, they have to declare the colour situation, E158 edition, which should be obvious for everybody. And Gregor is saying, I blame the spicy pizza or a Tully pick. Rookie mistake, like a Speedo to Isla. Looking at you, Rob Halford. Listen, I spoke to my friend who's behind the scenes. I can't wait to get him on so I can refer to him as who he actually is rather than just my friend. But we talked about this thing. We always do this blind. And the more we do this blind, the more you see our shock and our surprise at the reveal of these things, the more it encourages everybody else to open up about this and play the wee blind game and get over our preconceptions a bit. Now, I'm going to reverse the tables. Before I get my friend in who's off camera, I'm going to ask Whisky Geek to give us his overview of 1 through 4 of what I have sent you. Now, all of these whiskies I bought in a supermarket, but I'm going to be interested to see whether you would define them as supermarket whiskies, buddy.
Okay.
Take it away.
So how do you want me to handle this? Do you want me to go top to bottom or bottom to top, rather?
Yeah, rather than go 1 to 4, I think I might like to hear your favourite to least. That might be best.
Okay. Why can't I make things simple? My head is a mash of thought. So,
this is why we love Whisky Geek's head. We love it. We love it.
Going back to
I keep dropping in the link. There's a link I'm dropping into the lounge for everybody that's in the lounge tonight. Click on that link. It should be taking you to a page. Yeah, I've just clicked on it to test it, and it is working. That tells you exactly what the whiskies are. Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries. Going back to something you mentioned earlier, where you have an association or a perceived reputation for a distillery, and so when you know what it is, you have a tendency to perhaps enjoy it more. There was one whiskey here, sample 4, which I enjoyed, but slightly behind one of the others until I think I figured out what it was, or I started to hone in on something that made sense to me. And as soon as I could label it, suddenly it became my number 1. So I'm going to stick with what this is, Truly Blind, because that doesn't make sense to me. That's nonsense. That's illogical. I'm going to stick with what I thought of it blind, and that is in second place for number 4. My top one was sample 3. I thought sample 3 was probably non-chill filtered, was probably 46%, probably malted barley, and possibly English.
Nice.
Nice.
Not all correct, but I like the way you're talking. So you've put number 3 in first place. Anybody that's tuning in can click on the link that I've got in the lounge, and you can see what Ben's talking about. He doesn't see it. He doesn't have a clue what it is. Nobody in the world knows what it is until I started to put that link in there. today. So number 3 is your favorite. That's a good start. So you think you've got something non-chill filtered. You're talking about mouthfeel there, are you? You're talking about weight?
Yeah, so it was full, it was rounded, it was pleasant. There was
I'm just going to point at my friend who's drinking the same drams as you, Ben. Have you committed to your favorite to least favorite? Are you being influenced by over here in this chat, or are you locked in?
And I'm polar opposite.
Fantastic, good. That's what we want. We want the more contrast and debate that we can encourage. Fantastic, good.
So on the nose, wholesome cereal, a sour malt, touchy spirit.
Sour,
soft honey, some meadows, a hint floral, and a subtle butteriness, some lemongrass, touch citrus, and possibly a little bit nutty, but very, very subtle. On the palate, it's oily, it's fuller, and that's in relation to samples 1 and 2, which I progressed on from. It was fuller than them. I was getting stone fruit, red currants, chestnut, again, rounded cereals, and a touch of soft oak.
You did go towards the floral thing, and I don't want to lead you in any way here, but for me, the most thing, if you've ever walked into a hay barn on a dry day, when the hay is literally like hanging like dust in the air, you talked about the floral element and things, but it's like walking into a dusty hay barn. It was anyway, fantastic, great notes as well. Number 3 is your favorite.
Gave that one around a 75%. Whenever I do like a proper review, it'll be multiple samples from a wider breadth of time. But first impression, around a 75%.
Good.
So,
fantastic.
On to number 4.
Which is your second favorite.
I kind of came to the conclusion, putting my neck on the block here, kind of came to the conclusion, and this is why I think it was English, that number 3 was possibly a Cotswolds. I've never had Cotswolds before, so I don't know why, but I know you can pick it up for 30 quid, and I've got a bottle of it somewhere. I was tempted to crack it open to compare, but I thought that was cheating.
I don't think it would have been cheating. I don't think it would have been cheating at all. But it's interesting. So you've gone and claimed its presentation. You've given us the tasting notes. Put it as your favourite, and you think it might be an English whiskey. Fantastic. Number 2 is your second place. You've put as number 4.
Yes. So number 4, I thought
my buddy in the background is getting more and more animated as the notes go on. I can't wait to get him on and get him sharing. Terrific. Go ahead.
There's a touch of peat to this. It's mulchy, dark. There's caramel, a bit dusty, that Dunnage Warehouse influence. Not influence, sorry, tone. Stone fruit, some maritime air, a bit spirity, and white pepper prickle. I think the spiritiness is lending itself towards being a touch young. Wouldn't surprise me if this was a no-age statement. The mouthfeel was nice. There's more of that mulchy, dusty, and maritime. Cereal tone on the finish and a whiff of smoke, very subtle, with that caramel lingering on. At first I thought this was possibly that Airstone sea cask.
Yeah.
Which I've had once before, and it was a terrible bottle, but I seem to be the only one who's ever had a terrible bottle of it. So it seemed similar, but tangentially similar, like it was close to what other people thought it was. But the more time I spent with it, the closer it got, and the more it reminded me of the Glen Scotia double cask. So I'm thinking this could be the Campbelltown Harbour.
Okay. So you think it's 40% then?
Yes.
Based on what you've talked about it being an Airstone release or Campbelltown Harbour or something, you're thinking 40% ABV. You're certainly in coastal realms, a mulchiness. You're getting a wee bit of funk there. You're getting you talked about the fruit and things. Good, fantastic. And you've put it in second place.
Now, third place. Third place for me was sample number 1.
Okay.
And this is where things started to go a little bit wrong for me.
Mm-hmm.
I found on the nose, I was quite excited for it. I was welcomed in by a lot of things that made me really quite positive towards it. Touch spirity, yes, with a sharp white wine, but there's chestnuts, there's a bit mellow on some softer apple tones, candied like a fondant icing, youthful spirity prickle, and a wet green malt and some hay and possibly ginger biscuits.
Number 1.
on the palate. It's got this nice kind of fuzzy, effervescent quality to it. Not thick, not oily. I don't think this is high ABV. It could possibly not be chill filtered to within an inch of its life. There's a rising heat, more of those apple tones, and those apple tones I enjoy, but there's a sourness to it, and the sourness begins to interfere with my enjoyment, should we say. Finish, you get pepper, ginger prickle, some tannins, and it becomes bitter, and that bitterness lingers on. I think this is lower ABV, 40, 43. And the only whiskey that I think this is similar to is a Glenmorangie. And it's a Glenmorangie that I think you've sent me a while ago that I can't remember what it was. It's the only time I've ever tried it. But it's that succinct, sharp white wine tone reminded me of something you've given me in a blind taste before that I'm sure was a Glenmorangie.
Okay. Fantastic.
But it doesn't feel particularly thin. I think it is low ABV, but it doesn't feel like it's cynically lacking, shall we say.
Can't give away anything because we're going to get my buddy on here and get his opinions as well. He's going to obviously just summarize through. He's having a wee laugh in the background there. But finally then, that leaves the fourth place.
Fourth place was sample number 2. And this is weird. This is a whiskey that I had to kind of double take, and then I had to run it past Joe to make sure that I don't know, my palate was completely off base or something. Initially, quite fousty, cinnamon and apple pie. Again, the nose was very welcoming, and I was getting quite enticed by it. Some caramelized demerara sugar, a little creamy, possibly a touch of milky coffee that some people pick up on. It was elegant and subtle. I enjoyed it on the nose.
Here comes the but.
But on the palate, initially friendly, and then a very odd plasticine and hops tone develops. It almost came across like it wasn't barley to me, or there was something like a beer cask, ale cask, stout cask, one of those weird finishes that were involved.
Yeah.
Because of that peculiar hops element to it. And that rubbery plasticine tone started to lead me down the avenue of possibly being a Irish.
So certainly a lot of the notes that you're sharing are to do with youthfulness, I think, is to do with a young whiskey, I think.
Or a wide cup of spirit.
Or a what?
A wide cup. Spirit.
Yeah. That's interesting. This is the first time I've tried this whiskey. I bought this whiskey purely for this experiment. So, I mean, it wasn't about me giving you anything that I recommend or anything. This is very popular in supermarkets right now. I think this product is designed for that very purpose. So it's going to be interesting to see what that's about. It's the first time I have tried it. So there we go. So you've got no guesses what it is other than Irish, right?
Yeah, Irish I'm pretty blind to. It doesn't taste quite as garish to me today. Having had other whiskies prior to it, it's not quite as bold or abrasive as it was, but it's still got like a weird potpourri kind of oddity to it.
Okay, well, let's start doing a wee bit of a reveal thing for you here. But before we do that, I'm going to bring in my guest here because he's been waiting in the background. He's been studying away. But this is just a purely opportunistic thing that we had. So I've actually got another YouTuber all the way from the west coast of Canada. I don't have an entire YouTube channel here. I actually have half a YouTube channel. And I was showing you this wee coaster that is covered in patina earlier tonight. I have half of Trenny C. I drove into Glasgow this afternoon and rescued from the pot still Trenny.
Hey, everybody.
Of Trenny C.
That's what we do on the channel. You know?
Welcome to the vPub, buddy.
So
Welcome.
Much. So much fun.
And this is Ben. This is Whisky Geek Ben.
Hey, Ben. How's it going?
You might pick up on what I the reason I love having Ben around is that
Oh yeah,
really nice.
you've got a nose and a palate on you, man.
He's got a nose and a palate on him, but it's also that calm, pragmatic kind of considered way that he goes around whiskey, taking time out and just, and the tone, his cadence of his voice, everything. It's just like, okay, I'll listen to this.
Well, we were talking earlier about whiskey meditation. I think you
Yes.
kind of have the voice for whiskey meditation in you.
Well, he certainly practices it for sure, absolutely. But you've been sitting in the background and you've been reacting, and I've seen your head bobs, and I've seen you going, oh, and I've seen you nodding and agreement and things, and all over. So, and while I've been setting up tonight, and while we were going live, and I was hanging out with the lounge, and then go through Ben's drums, and then the same drums that you have, you've been doing it in the background as well.
Yeah,
now, I have to say, Ben, I gave considerably larger pours to my friend here, but he's still got lots of it left. So I've
been trying to savor as much as possible.
The first thing I'll say is that one of the things we have to remember as we're talking about the topic tonight, the whiskies that I've shared with you are fairly pedestrian price point whiskies, nothing outstanding. So thank you for your dedication and sitting down there and studying them. As a reward, after the vPub tonight, we'll be able to hang out. You can drink anything you like. Okay.
Well, I mean, you know what? That actually does bring up a good point, because it's like one man's treasure is another man's garbage, or vice versa. Because
absolutely,
in reality, where I'm from, there's no such thing as supermarket whiskeys. So having the old Pulteney 12 here in front of you, and for us, that's like $80 to $100 in Canada. And well, specifically in British Columbia.
But this is what we're in a car tonight. I picked you up. We're talking, and we're kind of talking. And you're saying, "Look, what can I add to a supermarket whiskies vPub?" And I said, "No, this is why it's important to everybody out there that can't buy supermarket whiskies.
Yeah,
we have this thing that gives us that definition. These are price point whiskies,
right?
That you can reduce to such a low, because we're taxed heavily on whiskey in the UK, heavily." It's cheaper in mainland Europe, typically. A broad brush statement is to say that, but we're taxed heavily, and yet we're still able to buy 12-year-old malt whiskey for £25.
It's incredible. Like, actually, C's been on here chatting a little bit too.
But what we've proved, please taste this. Is that you said you pick up soap in this.
I always kind of have. It's like this soapy, slightly floral, maybe a touch of saltiness to it, but
I never have.
Yeah, and I still get
easy.
It right now.
That's old Pulteney 12.
Yeah,
it was easy for me to put that to the end of the lineup tonight in front of these. So we've got a Tullibardine, we've got the Lechick, we've got the Tullibardine and the Glengoyne Indie. But it was easy to put something that I've been recommending for a long time. It's a good solid. Having said that, I'm recommending it. I don't have it on the shelf, and I haven't bought it in a long time. However, it could be that it's always been.
Okay. Here's proof in the pudding kind of thing. Trenny C did what's the best 12-year-old whiskey years ago, so we had a little less experience. However, that one came up as our top.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, granted. Again, this is another sort of situation where,
but Ben,
unless you're paying hundreds of dollars for a whiskey,
specifically, Ben, you said that it's the old branding, right? This is an old bottle.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find the review if I can date it. I think this bottle is about 3 years old.
Okay.
Can you show us the bottle?
I mean, look at the neck pour. Fill level.
You're not enjoying this whiskey.
It's not one that I go back to.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to throw dirt tonight. We don't want to do it. We love Old Pulteney as a distillery. We're certainly enjoying the indies. We're certainly enjoying other releases. We lament our 17s and our 21s. We're not judging an entire distillery, but what we have to judge here is say, look, this is a 12-year-old malt whiskey that they're trying to get out into multiples and high volume at a price point. And it has not performed particularly well. And the relatively caveats everywhere, right? The relatively limited lineup we have tonight. We want to hear. Sorry.
Yeah. So to the point of the ones that you were blind tasting.
Ben's been tasting.
Blind tasting.
Given to you. Yeah.
It's kind of funny. I had to laugh a little bit because I feel like we had similar tasting notes, however, different ratings.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll go my worst to
Perfect.
first. Okay.
Perfect.
So my least favorite was number 3. And I said it had a little bit of a new make kind of a vibe to the nose. And I know
Okay.
that's maybe not, you haven't revealed what it is yet.
No,
But
absolutely.
it's something, there was something, I mean, it could just be the fact that comparing it to the other ones is so unique, but
No, it is. It's sweet and spirity. There's no question.
But
It is almost new making.
I also got that hayloft kind of nose. On the flavor, I found the flavor better than the nose.
Yep.
A little bit honey soft arrival, a slight smoke in there, a lemon kind of oaky thing going on.
So this is Trenny. I'm going to put that in one more time so that people can click on the link. If you're watching the live chat, if you're watching the replay, this will be in the description box below. The link to this key so that you can see what he's. But he's this in 4th place, number 3 dram.
Yeah.
So and which was interestingly the reverse, as you mentioned, of Ben. He's put it first.
Yes.
Fantastic. Don't worry.
Should we reveal what it is now or continue?
Yeah, we can do actually.
We'll do reveal one at a time as I go through.
Well, because we don't. I don't need to pull the slide up and reveal everything because I've got the bottles.
Oh yeah, right. So what was
Ben's favorite?
Ben's favorite, my least favorite
is a Bunnahabhain.
What?
Bunnahabhain. And this is Sturature, which is a non-age statement from Bunnahabhain, but it's still all natural. It's 46.3. Sturature is Gaelic for helmsman, which is the little guy on the Bunnahabhain logo. This is quite a trick that Bunnahabhain have pulled off because they've got this fully natural thing that's replaced their 12-year-old in supermarkets now. 12-year-old has moved to a kind of more premium position with the age statement on it. This is non-age statement, so there's much younger whiskey in here, which I think it displays on the nose, as you mentioned, but they've still got it out there at 46.3%, and I actually bought this when it was not on offer at £32, but I have seen this at 26.
Yeah, and this would be probably at our premium spirit releases that happen once a year.
Yeah. This has been having Sturature at £26 to £35 or something like that in the UK. And it's widely celebrated because of the natural. Ben put it in number 1 and you put it in last place. But you're still able to find positives to make it an enjoyable product.
Yeah, I mean, it still has a nice quality to it, and the honeys and the different. I mean, it's still a delicious whiskey. In reality.
Yeah.
It's just when you have to compare 1 to 4.
Yeah.
You have to pick a 4th.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And tonight it's Bunnahabhain's. And you did talk about, and I think Ben mentioned it as well when he talked about the texture. There's an oiliness to this. And I wonder if the oiliness is a product of the fact that it's still just not been chill filtered. I think it's one of the thickest.
Interesting.
You don't?
Yeah, definitely. There is a nice viscosity to it.
It's oily. It's the one that
they're for my palate tonight, and we should also mention palates change throughout the day, depending on what you've eaten or if you're sick or any of that kind of thing.
Sure.
But it was the one that I kind of got this kind of astringent new make spirit thing. I think it does more on the nose than the palate.
I think it does come across as young. Ben's notes is he did talk about it. He talked about it being oily and fuller. He did think it was non-chill filtered. He did think it was at 46% ABV leading into that thing.
Good call.
But there you go. Okay, buddy. What number 3?
Okay, my 3rd place was actually number 2.
Number 2.
Yeah. Which was that? What one was that for you, Ben?
That was my last.
Yeah.
And I have to say, my number 2. It's the first time I've tried it. I bought it purely for this thing, because we're in an interesting situation right now in whiskey generally, malt whiskey. And I don't care if you're from Canada, from America, from England, from Scotland, Ireland, the whole world. We're having this explosion of new distilleries. And that puts a lot of pressure on the incumbents, because some of these new distilleries are getting long in the tooth now. And they're going to have 10 and 12-year-old age statements. But they're also making product for a different reason. They're not making product for blends anymore.
Right.
They're making product to be single malts for single malt's sake, and it's a different thing. So we're seeing all of these unchill filtered, natural artisan product. We're seeing these things coming out of these small distilleries, not large scale distilleries. And then out of the blue comes this distillery from Wales, and we have Aberfalls, a new distillery from Wales. I'm looking at Ben's reaction there. But what they have done is they've brought out a whiskey at 40% ABV.
Yep.
So they've just gone straight into the supermarket aisle and they've put their product out that way. And I've always been curious about that. Why have they done that? Why have they not gone premium? Why have they? Because if you're a whiskey geek and there's a new distillery in a country that doesn't have a lot of distilleries, you're going to kind of want to engage with that. And I didn't, because I thought, I don't know what they're going to do. This is a 2021 release, by the way it says on the label. It's at 40% ABV. I paid £26.
Yeah,
£26.
I think that the company that owns Aberfalls is the closest distillery to me. I think it's about 45 minutes down the road. The company that owns them also does the Whitney McNeil gins, those kind of things. As I understand it, I very briefly got to talking to one of their employees a while back. As I understand it, the owning company basically said, your first batch, you get to do what you want with, but from then on, you follow the company line, and the company line is 40% cash cow type of whiskies. And so they've kind of been forced into making whiskey as if it was marketed at gin drinkers.
Which put a light on you. I think that that's a shame. I think that if it's marketed, it just kind of fine. Lang may your lumreek, as we say in Scotland. Good luck to you. Best of success, whatever. But I think that that's in the modern day. Is that too bright for you now? You okay?
No, it's good.
In the modern day, that's an error. That's a mistake. That's against the zeitgeist. Everybody is chasing things that are more natural, more densely flavored. They're taking their time. They're not throwing back cheap
and this
spirits
has
anymore.
zero age statement, correct?
Obviously, it's very. We know this to be a 3-year-old whiskey,
right?
Because it's out in the market just about as quick as they could get it out there, pretty much.
Yeah, and one of my notes here was young.
Yeah,
a little sour, white grape, grassy on the nose, and then a soft arrival. It came on a little softer than the nose, and I definitely got the cinnamon notes on the flavor. And you were talking about maybe a beer cask, and I wrote down IPA cask, so I got kind of a similar thing on the flavor.
So is it bitter hops or something like that?
Well, like a Citra kind of hop, I'd say.
Yeah, okay.
Which goes in line with the cinnamon.
So it might be out there. It might be out there for £26. But I think the moral of this is we've got some consensus here, is that buy it at your peril. I think it's you're not going to get anything better than a £26 whiskey. Okay, what did you put in number 2 then?
I put at number 2 was number 1.
Okay.
Nice. It has like a nice, dense, sweet, fruity arrival on the nose. A little bit bubblegum. I actually was wondering if it had a rye influence on it, like it wasn't completely
That's funny. I think Ben talked about a fizz on this number 1.
Yeah, it's a little bit spicy, but not spicy in the sense of more spicy in the sense of like a bubble gum. A little bit nutty, and then on the flavor, I feel like it was actually a little bit fizz. That's where the fizzy kind of
there is an effervescence,
like an effervescence, but it also has those tropical kind of notes, like a papaya kind of a thing. And it goes into the finish a little bit longer.
Well, let me put you out your misery here.
Sure.
We have something that's very similar, albeit a little bit more mature now than this Aberfalls that I held up. This is not Scotch whiskey. I'm looking at Ben's reaction here. It turns out he's admitted tonight that he hasn't tried it, but he has. He's tried it now. And I do rave about this whiskey. I love this whiskey. This is the way to do it. I think they are maybe underselling themselves a little bit. This is Cotswolds. This is an English single malt whiskey from Cotswolds Distillery. This, just by chance, the one that I picked up this time is their signature. It's an outturn of 6,200, so 6,200 bottles. So often you can pick these up and they'll actually have the vintage on the bottle here. So it's going to be different batch by batch. Not all the Cotswold batches are the same. There is some variation in the batches. But this was £30. But what's interesting about this is it's 46% ABV. It's non-chill filtered and natural colour, and they put it on the label here. And this is the Cotswold signature that you're going to see now is going to be their standard, trying to be as consistent as possible release.
Can you show the camera up front a little bit what that bottle looks like?
Yeah.
Because someone like myself, I've actually never even heard of it or seen it before.
Well, it's one of the longest. So the Norfolk, the English whiskey company, or St George's Distillery down there in Norfolk was the original English whiskey. Cotswolds is still fairly new, but I think 2014. They've been going since about 2014. In fact, you can see established 2014. It says in the label there. So we've got something here that in a couple of years' time is going to be there's going to be mature malt there, 10-year-old malt.
Yeah,
and I heard today that there are 40 English malt distilleries already. And okay,
wow.
not all of them are producing yet, but certainly well over 30 of them are already well into production.
Now, is that a good thing?
I think it's a fantastic thing.
Okay, again. Okay.
I've said it before. If you want to guarantee good Scotch whiskey, the most likely thing to guarantee it is good English whiskey. Right?
Yeah.
So, but English whiskey, the producers are showing us that they can bring super flavorful, good quality product. It's small scale. That is all very, very small scale. None of these English distilleries are particularly big. So even if you add up all 40 of them, you would probably be lucky to get to the scale of even a Glenfiddich or a Glenlivet or whatever.
Yeah.
In fact, much smaller than that even.
Yeah.
But the small scale, but it's all been made for single malt sake. And I could let you try some Bimbers. I could let you try some of the White Peaks Wireworks down here. Really fantastic whiskies. But what Cotswolds have somehow been able to do is this magical thing of being able to produce a good quality whiskey. I think Ben didn't particularly love it. He put it in third place. You put it in second place. But I paid £30 for this. Interestingly, though, Ben, it seems to be always £30.
Yeah, that's what I paid for my bottle too.
That seems to be just the price point. I don't know, maybe 32, maybe 29 or something. But that seems to be, it doesn't seem to be this crazy £39 to 25, £40 to 25. That seems to be this thing. I understand the model, but the important thing here is I think what they're doing is they're bringing out an intact and an integrity whiskey, and it's good. And for £30, it's becoming hard to look past it. And I say that as a Scotsman buying Scotch whiskey in a Scottish supermarket. And I'm looking at this. When I was on holiday with my brother and we walked into the supermarket to buy a bottle to take to the beach, he was shocked. He said, "You're buying an English whiskey?" And I said, wait till you try it. And he tried it and he went, "Aye, okay, I get it."
Yeah.
Anyway, for £30, fantastic. So that means by process of elimination that your favourite
was number 4.
It's number 4. Ben had that as his second favourite, and you thought you were dealing with Campbellton Harbour. You got a bit of funk, a bit of mulch in there or something. The lounge already knows Hellswood's talking about the cheeky bastards, the English. But this is definitely
I'll
Scotch.
tell you my one note that nobody got. Snake pheromones.
That's an interesting one.
Have you ever? Maybe you guys don't have like gardener snakes.
Well, we've got grass snakes,
sure,
and they make a stink if you disturb them. But even then, there's not a lot of them around.
Yeah, so when you disturb a snake and they kind of let off that stink, I got a little bit of that on the nose.
Okay, so number 4,
which I quite like actually.
Wow. Have you smelled grass snake farts ever? No.
Can't relate to that one. No, I did have a snake.
I've smelled it once before in another whiskey, and it was in the Glencadam 14.
Glencadam.
Cadam.
Listen, I don't mind if Glencadam. I don't mind. You're still going to get a glass of Glencadam if you ask for it. But Glencadam, yeah.
Cadam.
Snake pheromones. Oh my goodness. Well, that's something I have never.
I quite like this. So there's a little bit of a smoky peaty vibe on the flavor too.
Ben thought it might have a Campbelltown like to it, coastal maritime, bit of mulch, bit of funk about it, and it is.
And that's the funk. See,
it's the
That's the
ubiquitous.
And you know what? That was my prediction for what this one was.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I didn't write it. I
you-
have no evidence. But, but I was thinking like I've always picked Highland Park. I was talking to you earlier about when I was young, every Christmas morning we'd have one dram, and whiskey was always very expensive in our part of the world. So we'd have one dram, and it was always Highland Park 12-year-old. So I just, as soon as I smelt that, I was like, yes, this has to be Highland Park.
The thing is that we are so down on Highland Park these days. I think that it's just one of these. We talked about it, the marketing, the confusion of the lineup. There's so many releases. The kind of whole Viking vibe. It's all a bit fussy, a bit over. It's just
the marketing.
The whole sense is
yeah.
oversold, right?
Yeah.
And yet this 12-year-old is undersold. Give us a few more percent ABV.
Right there, Highland Park fanboy.
Yeah,
From Trenny.
yeah. From C,
Yeah.
right from your other half. Yeah. So we've got 40% ABV. Maybe you guys get it at 43, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
usually, yeah.
You get export strength. We have it at 40, but I think give us this at 46. You would never have to pay or hard charge £25 for it again. But that's me speaking from an enthusiast perspective.
And to be fair, this is actually one that you can get for approximately the same price. This is about $56.
So you're not.
So ours is $1.60 for your pound.
Yeah. So you're not paying over the odds for it in Canada as well, like you are for some of the other ones. Well, it's interesting because Ben put it second, and you put it first. My point here is that Highland Park have managed to pull off a flavorful product, and they're still putting out there at a cheap price. It's a large-scale distillery, though. But if they put it out at the price that it was actually worth, which is arguably at least what the Cotswolds are charging there, give us if the enthusiast in me means I want it to be non-chill filtered. I want it to be a bit more natural, but I accept that not all whiskies have to be like that. Not all whiskies have to do that thing. But they say that, oh yeah, but we sell so much of the 12-year-old that it enables us to bring to you treats like the 18, and that's not true. They're not making a loss on anything.
No.
But I accept that the margins are very, very thin at £25 a bottle. What? Come on, just. And then they've got that flip thing where they're then trying to sell us this uber premium product and the higher age statements.
Now, having said that Highland Park 12-year-old, from what I've noticed, has been really consistent bottling after bottling. And at some of the other releases with the new Viking series, I've found kind of a hit or miss, where the 12 has always been. It's kind of just been the 12, and it's something you can kind of come back to. It makes
sense with the younger stock. You've got a deeper stock at a younger age statement to make it a bit more consistent. So that would make some sense. Certainly on the 18-year-old, I've found huge inconsistency over the years. Mm-hmm. But it's an interesting thing that they're trying to do there. They've got this huge mass market product out there, 12-year-old age statement, that they're trying to sell as aggressively as possible. And then the entire rest of the range has got this really kind of luxury, almost goods, and they're trying okay, I don't get it. But what we've proven tonight is that there's still a lot of love for Highland Park 12. Ben picked out his favourite, interestingly, the Bunnahabhain.
Yeah.
And I think that's got a lot to do with texture and things. Ben, your notes were spot on again, buddy. They really. Is there anything that surprises you about that reveal?
Yeah, well, both of them, to be honest. Bunnahabhain Styradar is a whiskey that I'm a big advocate for. It's a whiskey that I've got one on the shelf of, one that I've finished one of this year. It's regularly available for £25 around here. I think it's available right now for £25 around here. And that is quite different to the bottles I've had before. Not in a negative way. The consistencies are not around the flavour, but instead around the quality, in the mouthfeel, in the presentation, and the flavour has kind of, the only consistency is that kind of bold, youthful spiritiness. What I was looking at my notes before, what I found in my other bottle is much more fruitiness. to what I was getting from this sample. So the kind of the batch variance is a little bit interesting. And in a similar vein, on the Highland Park 12, it's a bottle I drink a lot of. I really thoroughly enjoy, and it's a great price point whiskey. But this is the peatiest I have ever found a Highland Park 12. I normally struggle, like genuinely struggle, to pick up any peat on a Highland Park 12. And coming at this one blind, it was there. It was evident. It was present. It was mulchy, and it was all these kind of foosty tones. And it's just something that I've been oblivious to pretty much, or I've struggled, even intentionally looking for, I've struggled to find before. So
this
I don't
is
know.
absolutely one of those drams that I don't consider peaty, but I put it in front of somebody that doesn't drink whiskey and they say, oh, it's smoky.
It's smoky, yeah. And for me, it's like a baseball glove leather kind of a thing.
Yeah.
I've done that myself so many times, but then you gave this to me blind, and that, if it wasn't for how much of that element, how much of that tone I was getting in it, I may have thought Highland Park 12, because it's got all the other, the hallmark elements, the honey, the heathery, the floral tones.
Yeah,
I would have totally gone down that avenue. But
the heather honey, and the one I'm waiting on everybody mentioning, but nobody's mentioned tonight, but it's quite strong for me, is I always get a kind of charred orange or a orange skin note. It's often very orangey to me, and it is tonight. Luna Aaron is saying, I love the full volume Highland Park. So full volume, you got it. It was originally a big export thing. It was all ex-bourbon without any kind of Viking shishi, she's saying, and pure bourbon casks. Terrific, Luna. Gary Nut Phil, that looks like a new name, buddy. He's got bought my wee dram. He's a live vPub at last. Taroy et al. Really appreciate supermarket drams being looked at. P.S. Roy, don't forget the Bond has some balcones. Cheers, Ian. Is that Ian? So I think Ian, if that's the Ian, I think it is. The super chat here.
Oh yeah.
He's I think he's a barman at the Bon Accord. Is that you, Ian? I know you use a different name from Gary Nut Phil, but yeah, I did spot some balcones behind the bar at the Bon Accord. Richard Agnew saying HP are pushing their 10-year-old over here in Canada. I've noticed that as well. The 10-year-old is a push here too. Not tried the 10-year-old yet, Richard. I wonder if you've got an opinion on that. McAlpine Rare Doc is saying, how can one not like Highland Park's fart of the toad? 16.5 years. I mean, it's hard. They gave us so much to be cynical about. It was come on, it became silly. But you're in a restaurant, there's nothing else. I'd like a malt whiskey. Do you have any malt? Sorry, we've only got Highland Park. Okay, and you sit and you're having a tumbler, and you think, actually, this is a good whiskey, a good solid whiskey. Now, I want to say, I don't want to talk up prices ever. I'm going to sit here and say to you tonight, I think £25 is too cheap. But my point is that if they could,
Ben shaking his head.
Yeah, everything else is too expensive.
That's
true. That's probably a better
point.
Let
me put it to you like this then, Ben. Highland Park 12, you put it in second place. Trenny here put it in first place. If you got it with a few more points ABV, with the oils and fats not stripped out of it through aggressive chill filtration, if you got it 46% plus, what would you pay for it?
30, 35. Put it alongside some Ben Romacks, you may even be looking at 40, 45.
We know Highland Park catch wind of this, because it's still cheap for me in Canada.
Did it. They brought out a 12-year-old. They did it unchill filtered.
Yeah.
And it's sold like hotcakes and you can't buy it anymore. What is it about supermarket whiskies? This is my argument, that they think they have to give it to you in the minimum it can be to be whiskey. Export strength is 43, but domestic is 40% ABV. Yeah. It's legally whiskey at that point, and they put it out there. Because why? Because whiskey is too hot for most palates. They need to keep the ABV down. Now, there's truth in that. We can't just dismiss this. However, the most powerful tools I've used to convert people into whiskey is powerfully flavored whiskey through sherry cask, through peat, and through cask strength.
Agreed.
You give it to people and you think it's hot, it's really hot, it's going to be too strong for you to enjoy. Put a wee bit of water in it and they go, but my goodness, the flavor goes bang, it explodes in their head. They start to go, wow, this is totally different. This is not what I expected. They're taking tiny sips.
Because it becomes an experience. It's something that you don't forget.
It's not,
especially the peated whiskeys for some people.
Yes.
I remember the first time I ever tried a peated whiskey, it was a Lefroy quarter cask. And
so it's 48% ABV.
48%. Yeah. And I had not experienced any peat. The closest to peat I had was like a Highland Park 12. And as you say, it's not really in there. But Man, I
except tonight, yeah.
never forgot it.
Yeah.
You know, it becomes like a searching for that
Yeah,
high of
yeah.
the peat almost.
And that's what you're looking for. What people when they're coming into whiskey, supermarket whiskies are not there to bring people into whiskey. Let's get this straight. They're there to sell volume.
For sure.
However, there is also a burden upon them because of what I explained at the start of this stream that people are going to explore, and there are not enough. And I'm speaking about supermarket whiskies in the UK and where we have supermarket whiskies. There are not enough bold, flavoursome hooks. We've demonstrated that there are a couple there tonight. There's not enough flavour first whiskies out there. There's too much vanilla. There's too much cheap. There's too much young. There's too much thin. And there's too much reliant on a few years in an active cask. And I think that that's a dangerous place to play when Cotswolds can bring a densely flavoured natural product for £30.
Yeah.
Whiskey.
But fortunate enough that it does exist in that realm of the supermarket whiskey.
Yeah, and what is the magic there? Why is there such a different strategy there between these two new, relatively new, very new in the case of Aberfalls, that have gone just cheap, make it whiskey. As long as we can legally call it whiskey, that's it. We've demonstrated that there's nothing awful about this, but it's not a good whiskey. They could have done a lot better. I hope that their much more naturally presented products are better. And this Cotswolds, it's a completely different strategy with two young whiskies. £26 for this, £30 for that. I would pay the extra £4 for this all day long, every day.
Mm-hmm.
Would you? You're smiling, Ben.
I would avoid drinking that Aberfalls. You know, in a world where there's too much good whiskey and my liver can only take so much, I would avoid drinking the Aberfalls.
Oh, but it's £26 though, Ben. It's only £26.
I mean,
it's only 26.
You know, look at how many of these whiskies that we've had tonight that are within £2-3 of that.
Exactly.
How does it compare against them?
Exactly.
It's and I think we've all said it, that it's a great place to be able to explore different whiskeys. You're not paying an arm and a leg for something you hate.
I bought all 4 bottles. I didn't buy them all for this purpose. I mean, the Helen Park 12 I've had for a long time, but I know I paid £25 for it. All 4 bottles were just over £100 for 4 of them. So this is not about that. We're not shouting about it being too expensive.
Yeah.
But we've been forced into this bracket potentially because the whiskies that we've been chasing are now going out of reach. They're becoming more and more and more expensive as time's going on. So we're now kind of taking our spotlight back and looking to see what has the supermarket shelves got to offer us here. And there is comfort. There is some nice offerings there. But I'm a wee bit concerned that there's a little bit too much FITD. The F stands for, well, no, we can say it stands for forget it, that'll do.
Yeah.
You know, just that'll do. And I think that that's the wrong way to go. The zeitgeist right now is to chase flavor and engagement, to drink less and enjoy more.
Absolutely.
To give up on drinking and taste instead. And I think that if you look at the supermarket whiskey offering right now that we have, they're catering to the drinker. And they're often, what they're trying to do is obviously somebody drink a bottle and they replace it with the same brand. Drink it, replace it with the same brand. And there's an entire segment out there, blends, that's designed to bring a consistent product, to do that time after time after time. That is not the purpose of malt whiskey, and it never has been. And I think as soon as we try to force malt whiskey to do that, we start to come unstuck a wee bit. Batch variation should be embraced when malt. Graham Young from Canada's bought us a wee dram. The Bonaccord has some choice stock, even a wee Daft Mill in the right company. Thrilled to see Ben and Trenny on the vPub. Me too. Crack a Canadian malt. Right, we could crack one of Graham's. 2 brewers.
2 brewers.
Two
so
brewers.
Good. So good.
Bring it over. Bring it over.
Oh.
In the Whiskey Diary, Ben, I got to hang out with Ben last night. Let's not forget, the Loch Lomond peated single grain, maybe the king of supermarket bottles, Slantia. What they've done there, you're absolutely right, Ben. They've brought a malt whiskey. They have to call single grain because it's gone through a column still. It's not batch made in a pot still, so it's not a single malt whiskey by SWA definitions, but it's still a really good whiskey. That's a dark green bottle Loch Lomond that's up there. The green one is peated, the red one is not. Both of them are fantastic. And you're at £22 a bottle. You're so relaxed about it.
£22.
46% ABV as well.
That's just crazy.
And
to
if
me.
they're colouring it, it's as white as this one here.
Yeah.
It's as pale as white wine. So
says white as this Trenny C coaster.
actually, that Trenny C coaster has got more
It's
colour
been
in
through, it's been through some.
it. Yeah,
Some.
I've had that 5 years, I think.
I think this has been aged in a barrel like 12 years
Yeah,
or
yeah.
so.
I think I've had this for 5 years. You know.
Yeah.
I think this
Aged
is
5 years.
the first of your coasters when you sent them out.
Mhm.
It's dear to me, and it stays here all the
I
time.
love it. We love that.
Okay, so this is a gift. This has come from the community. I appreciate there's a lot of people out there that's not going to get this. This is not a supermarket whiskey. We do need 2 clean glasses,
Yeah.
my friend. I'm only sending you because you're closest, of course. not because... Ben, I wish I could share this with you, buddy. Two Brewers Canadian whiskey. This is not going to be inexpensive. This is different. We're only doing this because I've got a Canadian on the stream.
And I will say, and sometimes we have been talking about price, obviously, because it's a part of it. It's a part of not wanting to break your bank. In my mind, you're going to pay maybe a couple extra dollars. Get this Two Brewers number 30 if you can.
Really?
C and I tasted this a couple of months ago, and this is the peated, correct?
It's the peated, yep.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly,
yep.
I mean, they have this sequential number that just goes through.
Oh yeah.
But each one is part of a different category. So you don't know. All the 30s are peated, that's sure, but not all the peated are going to be in the 30s.
Yeah, so they've gone up. Every number is a new release basically, and they all have different expressions, like a peated or experimental or whatever. It's not
heavily peated.
No, it's not heavily peated.
I'm going to try and do my best Whisky Geek for you, and so that you can vicariously taste this.
You got to keep in mind it's still Canadian style, so it has a little bit of that sweetness that you might expect, but it's not overly done.
Well, we're not doing this any kind of. It's been settled. There's no bottle shotgun on here. Sure. It's been sitting, but it's just been uncorked. We're not giving it any time.
And what's the percentage on there?
It's pretty high. It's pretty decent. It's
oh yeah. Right there, 46%.
So we know, and I think I looked earlier. I think there it is there. Non-chill filtered, no added color, written on the label.
Mm-hmm.
So here's to Graham Young. Thank you for
this. This is from the Yukon in Canada, by the way. Yeah.
This is a treat. It's clinging to the glass
got
as
that
well.
Bubblegum nose to it. Very slight peat, more on the flavor than the nose.
I would struggle to pick up peat in this some nights, I think.
But in my mind, to be a proponent of Canadian whiskey, it's showing that Canadian whiskey is doing something a little bit different than we've always done. People think of Crown Royal.
Yeah, it's not.
And that's
there is a sweetness here. It's floral.
Yeah,
it's very floral, and I mean a floral in a positive sense, an inviting floral. The bubblegum thing, I get absolutely. This is pink whiskey in my mind. I often very much it's maybe the bubblegum thing, the floral thing. It's
a bit of that Bazooka Joe bubblegum where it has a bit of that minty.
We had
kind
Bazooka Joe, vanilla and mint. We were talking about it just yesterday. Cheers, Ben.
Cheers.
And that's where you get a little bit of that peat. It's not overpowering though.
Oh no, that's a good whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, there is a you talked about the Canadian thing and stuff. Yeah, there is a wee bit of, this is very Scotch in style though. This is about the closest to Scotch that I've had in a Canadian whiskey.
Well, it's also a single malt, which we don't usually have in Canada. It's usually blended grains together.
Yeah. But this is malted barley, yeah.
And in Canada, usually they do it kind of like a winemaker style where they age each grain in barrels separately and then blend it together. So this is more done in a single, a Scotch style.
Ben, if I invite you on for a blind Scotch versus the World Part 3, there's a good chance there'll be a Two Brewers peated in the lineup. Just a little heads up for you.
I'll make a note.
Yeah.
My takeaway from what you gave to me is I need to spend more time with Tullibardine. I think that's honestly the takeaway. And I think I did make that pledge when I discovered I've got a Tullibardine over there. You're welcome to try later, but we've got so much to get through. We don't have enough.
My takeaway is I got to try it one time. I've never tried a Tilburg.
You've never tried it? No, okay, I've got the Murray over there, which is a really good take on Tullibardine, but you're welcome to try it. We don't have enough hours in what's left of our time.
I might be staying here for a couple of days.
just hang out. I'll put an air mattress down and you just stay in here.
It's more than C gives me at his house.
That's the takeaway. Have you got a takeaway from us from the 4 I sent to you? I think I have.
So I guess I want to spend more time with the Cotswolds, but also the Bunner and the Highland Park. I'm really interested to revisit my bottles and see if this has been enlightening or if I put it down to batch discrepancy, quite what's gone on there. But the Cotswolds, as the night's gone on, for all of them, even the Old Pulteney, I've enjoyed it more as the night's gone on. But that Cotswolds began to flourish a little bit, and what I was picking up on it that I would call flaws with a relatively clean palate kind of just disappeared. It went into the background. It was an afterthought, and in that it flourished a little bit. So I am looking forward to exploring that one in a little bit more, particularly given it's English, and in a little bit more detail.
So do I detect a follow-up stream then, maybe over on Whisky Geek's channel, where you can give us a closeout on this? No. Actually, on that point, I just have to mention quickly, there's not likely to be a vPub next week. There's an opportunity for me to head out to Isla, and I think that the only night that it's going to be I'm going to be able to do that actually turns out to be Thursday night. So it might be that there's no vPub next week. I will reach out to the usual suspects, maybe Ben, maybe Shayla, and see if we can. But I think that there's an 80% chance that I won't be here next week. But watch the socials, and I'll obviously let everybody know. You'll know by Sunday, Monday, Tuesday if there's nothing posted. You'll know that you have. We're skipping a wee week. I do apologise, but yeah, just a wee heads up there.
So, do you mind if I give a little bit of a shameless self-plug?
Yeah. What, you do Thursday night streams or?
No. Well, occasionally, but it's not so set in stone.
Well, even more than that, let's.
So, tomorrow night, which, it'll be because I'm here, so it'll have to be at about the same time tonight, 10 p.m. UK time, whatever you call it. Yep. We're doing a live stream with James Bourne from now my mind's going racing. It's from who does King's Cross? I just lost my brain there.
King's Cross?
Yeah. Compass Box.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great King Street you're talking about.
Great King Street. That's what I was saying. Yeah. I went a little Harry Potter there, I think.
No, and to be fair, you've done very well because I picked you up after a session in the Pot Still. We came here, we sat and relaxed for a little while with some beers and drams, and then you've been blind tasting since then, so that's okay.
So tomorrow night, if you guys have nowhere to be, no place to go, come on over to the Trenny C channel.
But Trenny C are one of the longest established channels. They've been going for 5 or 6 years now, right?
Yeah,
since 2016.
Yep.
Wow. So they're longer. They're longer in the tooth than I am, buddy. You've cracked to 10K subscribers.
We finally got 10K yesterday, actually. So
I remember I used to say it regularly if I wanted a bit of light-hearted relief. You're very irreverent. You're maverick. You're laid back. If you want informal, that's exactly what Trenny C bring. Some of the things that you did in the early days were rude, funny. I mean, it was just really, really good stuff.
Sometimes you're lucky if you catch us talking about whiskey.
Yes, but you do. You genuinely enjoy your whiskey.
Yeah.
You do. There is something that I do want to pick your brains on. Do you remember a while ago, Ben? I picked the fabled Aaron 14 of my whiskey of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ralphie picked Glenallachie 12. And these boys decided to do a face-off, right? Now, never did I imagine in my dreams that I would have the opportunity to have somebody alongside me. I've not mentioned this to you, right? This is a blind side, right?
But I do remember that well.
Patrick Bernard is, Patrick Berent. Sorry, Patrick. I think Berent is probably closer to your name, Berent. I always love the content and discussion. Roy's bought us a wee dram. Let's raise a wee glass and say thanks to Patrick. Thank you, buddy.
Cheers.
Oh no, that's not. This is the.
There's the
two
two
brewers,
brewers.
the one I meant to pick up. But here's what we're going to do tonight.
Okay,
Grab 2 glasses.
Yeah.
Please,
Yeah.
grab 2 more glasses. Look what I have, just for tonight, just on the off chance that there would be one of the members from Trenny and C in order for me to relive this thing. This is not just Glenallachie 12. This is the original bottle of Glenallachie 12. This is the one that Ralphie voted his whiskey of the year. It's still sealed. And if anybody wants to check out the bottle code on this, I don't know if there's dates on this. There you go. Can you see that? 8th of June 2018.
I see it. And
yeah,
C's watching right now. Ralphie versus Roy.
Ralphie versus Roy. Now you did this.
Oh, we did this.
Who did you pick?
I picked that one.
They were wrong. I love
is
Ralphie.
But I feel like maybe
I love
C
Ralphie.
picked Aaron. I think we had a different opinion.
Well, the overall result was that Ralphie won. And I said,
Pressure's on.
there-
Pressure's on.
There is not a chance that that is the case. So we have the original, not the modern Glenallachie 12, but Glenallachie 12 from that year.
Wow. Cracking bottles and everything.
Yeah. No, not just cracking bottles out of pure revenge and spite. And we have this is all that I have left of my precious, long discontinued RN14.
Look at you've got it. Ben's got both of them too.
Have you got them?
This is definitely not the same
Look at the
Glenallachie
difference.
12 that you have.
Look at the difference.
That's definitely what?
That's definitely not the same Glenallachie 12
That's
that you
Glenallachie
have.
12.
Yeah, compared to this.
That's
Much
that's
more
today's
modern.
Glenallachie 12. Quite incredible, right? But that's what Billy Walker's been doing with casks, obviously, because he's still got the inherited spirit, still working with inherited spirit. He's working his way forward on his own spirit. So we have the 2014 long discontinued Aaron 14.
Yeah.
Now it's not apples for apples because it's 2 different whiskies, but also
Two
this one's been
completely different
open a
whiskies.
long time. But I am so, Aaron, you need to bring this whiskey back again. What's happened to this? The cleanest expression, the prettiest expression they had. It's all,
I love the color of the bottle. I will say that.
yeah, well, and you are colorblind, so you were glad that we used numbers
Don't
tonight.
tell people.
You did mention. So
That's right.
yeah, here we are. So this is the face of this is going back to 2018 when I said Aaron 14 was my whiskey of the year. So let's have a wee. We should have.
Come on, and 2 more glasses for yourself.
I don't mind sharing,
Okay,
but
that's
get
fine, that's
2
fine.
more and we'll do a.
This is good.
I mean, this is sweet. This is toffee caramel.
Yeah.
Lots of. This is a crowd pleaser. This is a good, sweet, easy whiskey.
I'm a part of a crowd.
Yeah.
No, but okay. Let me defend myself a little
No,
bit.
there's no defense.
Let me defend myself. I had never tried an Aaron before.
Uh-huh.
I guess I had never tried a Glenallachie either. So I'd have no defense, actually.
Sip both of them.
But
And I am
was
not. I know that you're under
4 years
pressure,
ago, 4 years ago.
but now I urge you to reassess. Now that you have experience,
Yes.
now that you've got a bit of time, you've got it under your belt. And pure revenge and spite are the best reasons to do anything. Says
I
Jimmy
feel
Lake.
like I had the same kind of thing where I really liked the nose more on the Aaron, and then on the flavor, I liked the.
Have you got that Aaron
Oh.
14, Ben? Is that the bottle you have? And what's your opinion of it? You've got much more than I have.
It's genuinely it's probably my favorite Aaron I've ever tried, but it's genuinely got that little magic, subtle elegance to it that I'm nursing this bottle because it is a special whiskey to me.
If the only criticism I
taste
can put towards Aaron, the Aaron range that they have today, is that it's much more of a cask message, and that's fine. They're doing great whiskies. Let's not take anything away from Aaron, but that 14 was just that lovely balance, enough cask and no more. Lovely Aaron spirit. It was that spirit that told you Aaron had arrived, and it was available for quite a few years before they finally got rid of
on
it.
the skin?
Both are the same, 46.
It's because it's freshly opened, but it does have a little bit more sizzle and heat than the Aaron, and the Aaron has a little bit more subtlety and a little bit more.
It's been in an open bottle for a long time.
That's really helping.
Yeah.
And at the time, they were both fresh cracks when I tried it.
There's not apples for apples.
Yeah.
But I think it's strong enough for you to read.
You know, they they speak their own language. They speak 2 separate languages.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to give this one to you.
Yeah.
I think this Aaron.
Now that you've got some experience under your belt, you know that clearly, and now you need to go back to C and you need to say, listen, we made a wrong call.
We
that,
screwed up.
You know,
See, I know you're watching. Can we just redo that video when we get back?
But Ralphie's watching as well. And I think that he would say, no, the Aaron was better, but I knew it was about to be discontinued, so I chose the Glenallachie. That's what you would say.
You know, there is a little bit more of a effervescence and just not as full-bodied on the Glenallachie as that is, as the Aaron.
I would say,
yeah, the nose. I'm loving the nose on the Aaron right now.
A lot of that heat always comes across to me in Glenallachies. I associate it with the Glenallachie spirit as it currently stands, regardless of how old the bottle is, how it's been sat.
Helen Widdowson is pointing out that I missed a couple of drams from Dribs and I missed a couple of virtual drams from Dribs and Drams. Two Brewers is what I wish mass availability Canadian was more like. Dribs and Drams is a countryman of yours from Canada.
Yes.
He's got a channel as well. Hey, raise a wee glass of this gorgeous Aaron 14.
Oh, I'll trade you here. No, let's just trade for a second.
Cheers to you. And I did miss Jimmy. A contribution to a backup liver for Ben. We need to keep him drinking whiskey. I agree with you, Jimmy Legg. Ben, it's always absolutely superb to hear you coming on. I love your contemplative take on whiskey, and you're just better at it. You're good at it, buddy. You really are. Ralphie just unsubscribed to Trenny C.
I'm sure you've never subscribed in the first place.
Gordon Dundas is in, and he's saying Aaron 14 is sublime. Gordon Dundas is the global brand ambassador for Glengoyne. Yeah, for Ian McLeod, actually. I think he's time to do as well.
Well, I might be going to Glengoyne tomorrow.
You might want to pull a parachute before the quiz tonight, Gordon. You know what's coming up, buddy. Sorry, it's too much. I can't. It's Peter Lee is saying I'm home, and I love the old Aaron bottlings.
Yes, Aaron Pierce, Roy leading the witness.
Oh, I absolutely am. There's no bones about. I mean, I wasn't even subtle there. It's clearly you've made a mistake. I urge you to reconsider.
No, this is way better.
But I honestly thought at the time, no. Will there ever be a moment in the future that I can put those two glasses in front of them and say, please? But this is not it's not Roy against Ralphie. It's very much Glenallachie against Aaron, and I think that Glenallachie was new on the scene. Ralphie wanted to point out how good a whiskey that was that Billy Walker was bringing out. Natural, a distillery that was thus far
it checked a lot of boxes.
Ignored a pedestrian blended distillery, a bit of care in a cask, a bit of craftsmanship about putting it together, and a fair price, natural presentation. Nothing to talk about.
Right,
superb. And I picked the Aaron that year because I just loved it, and I was so sad that
I'm trying to remember what we picked that year. It was probably something absolutely ridiculous. I think we might have picked a Cavalan of some kind. I can't remember.
That's all right.
I can't remember.
That's all right. Cavalan. David Barnes is saying he's not saying anything. He's just bought us a wee dram, a wee 1.79. David, thank you very much. I'll raise a glass to that as well. We always close out with a quiz at the end. Do you know?
Yes, I know of the quiz.
Okay, but tonight,
I will tell you.
Yeah,
it took me a few years to get through grade 11. So the quizzes I'm not great at.
Listen, we always talk about how easy the quizzes are, Ben, right? It's even the chimpanzees can get a third. You know, it's multiple choice.
And yet I'm still haven't got a 10 out of 10, I don't think.
Buddy, I have yet to get a 10 out of 10 as well. I've never had a 10 out of 10 in my own quiz. I'm talking about my own format when I participate in it. Cass and Ashes has bought us a dram as well. He says, you're all great. Thanks for all you do for the whiskey community. Thanks very much. And he's put a wee link into Instagram, casks _and _ashes.
By the way, go back to that Two Brewers for half a second. I love that nose because it's so much different than the flavor. Sometimes the nose and the flavor match. This is different. Anyway, sorry, maybe I'm just pumping my own Canadian horn there.
No, you're not. It's gone buttery now.
Mm-hmm. It's
thick.
Amazing.
Where is the two that we've just been comparing and contrasting there?
Here's the Aaron.
It's these are quite delicate and light and almost maybe spark. This is quite thick and oily and buttery. And quite a really nice weight to it, and
Nice.
and maybe that's what it's taken for the peat to come out in this. The kind of, but it's still light. It's very delicate peat. Thank you very much for your dram cast and ashes. Whisky Radar. Roland is saying, I remember the first time I had Aaron 14 and it had a juicy apricots all over it. Yellowstone fruit attack. It is dearly missed. I managed to grab a bunch of 5CL miniatures though. I think it's the single most overlooked category in Scotch whisky. Refill bourbon cask, left alone, teenage years. Don't do anything with it. Don't overthink it. Just bring us that white stone fruit, as Roland's talking about there. Bring that lovely, clean spirit, that delicate thing that refill casks and 14 years in a cold, damp, humid climate can do.
I have a little bit of a thing to say. We have the Victoria Whiskey Festival every year, which is world-class whiskey festival, and we meet some of our subscribers that we only know them by their handle.
Sure. Yeah.
But one of them came up to us and said, "Have you guys seen Aaron?" And we're like, "Who's Aaron?" Like we don't know who that is. And he was talking about obviously the distillery. Yeah, it was just kind of a funny moment.
Yeah.
Like, no, we haven't seen Aaron. Like we have no idea. We only know Aaron by his handle, I'm sure.
But I don't know, it was probably fairly recent years, but I remember when I was first getting into whiskey, I walking into a whiskey shop and somebody offering me a bottle of Aaron, and I'd never. They make whiskey on Aaron. I've never.
Yeah.
And I just, it was an honest statement, Aaron, back in the day, and little did I know that 10 or 15 years later I'd be going.
You're a fan.
Stephen Toth has bought us a wee dram. It's a Canadian as well.
Thanks,
It's good to see a British Columbian on the vPub. A dram for you, Roy. As Trenny may go through some of your stock. Have a great weekend, gents. Enjoy your stay in Scotland, Trenny. Well, I hope he's going to enjoy going through some of the stock here in the vPub. Cheers. Cheers.
This has been so much fun.
Ben, I found myself telling a story recently of just before we go into the quiz at the end. You came to me when you were here in November for that fundraiser, and you came up and said, Roy, and I'm going to recall this, if I'm mistaken, please correct me, but you said, Roy, I don't understand what it is about Clynelish. I don't get it. You need to, what is it? And I said, look, the recent Clynelish 14s have suffered from a bit of up and down and all over, and you've maybe had some bad bottles. And I gave you a sip of that really old Clynelish, the little 20CL that I've got. And my recollection is that you take the sip from the glass and you go, aye, I get it. And then you turned around and sat down and sat in front of the table and just took your time with it. And it's cool, isn't it?
It was specifically the 14-year-old expression, because I'd recently reviewed it. I think I've had 2 bottles of it, and I know that you are a big fan. I know that you're an advocate of it, and both bottles were tough to engage with. Mm-hmm. But the one that you gave me was along the lines of this. It was that elegance. It was the subtleties, the complexities, the intricacies that are really, really engaging and exciting to explore. The newer expressions, the bottles that I had tried, were flat in comparison.
I've got one over there, and I bought another one immediately because of the one I went through a couple of the same. Scott Monroe, Kilted Moose, who was in earlier tonight, had the exact same problem. He had a hot bottle. This is exactly what I'm talking about in this context of supermarket whiskies. We are trying to force malt whiskey to be consistent, and it does not want to be consistent. The Clynelish 14s went off, and batches are off. But we're picking them up at £35. So even when they're off, we're not wounded. But I've just recently bought a couple of bottles, and there's one over there that's open, and it's maybe not back to the one I gave you a sample of that was about 10 years old, but it's back on form again. So I think we should always weave into this kind of batch thing. At one point, Cotswolds was putting the batch and the vintage on the bottle as well, and still selling it through supermarkets. Yeah, this is slightly different.
Isn't that 6,200 written on your bottle? Isn't that a batch code? Because mine, I think, says 6,000.
No, it's outturn.
Oh, okay, never mind.
And I know a lot of them have 6,200 written on it. How's your eyesight? What's that?
Terrible.
What's that? That's see there.
That says
outturn.
Bottles in batch.
Bottles in batch. So that's so 6,200 bottles.
Okay.
But this is the rather than say the Odyssey barley and have a vintage next to it, This one says Cotswold Signature, so I think this is maybe even a bigger release. So 6,200.
I'm of the opinion that the chasing consistency actually hurts the product.
It does. It really does. That's absolutely it does. But only in malt whiskey. If you can take grain, and if you can add malt as seasoning and flavor it, then that should be achievable as a consistent product. To try and force consistency into malt is forcing malt again into the legacy of blends. 40% ABV, cheap, consistent, Coca-Cola type product. It's malt. It's a batch made product. Why are we trying to pretend that it's something that can be made as a continuous, dialed in, programmed product? It's at odds with what malt whiskey is.
And if it all tasted exactly the same every batch, you would not have the appreciation of when it's excellent. Like
mass market is at odds with where we are going. As it's not at odds, they can exist next to each other, but when you're trying to take one and make it become the other, that's when the problems come in. And I think that what should be happening, Aberfalls, I'm sorry, you're making malt whiskey, it's small batch product, and you're putting it out there. It's 40%, and it's not gin. It's malt whiskey. It's a completely different vibe. It's a completely different everything. And I think that that's one of the issues. I did not pick Aberfalls to poke fun at it tonight. I genuinely had never tried it. I wanted just to give it a fair go, and we've all ended up going, this is odd. This isn't working. It's not ready yet. Steve Atkins has bought us a dram. Do try a bottle or two from the supermarket, but don't forget to support locally specialist whiskey shop. They will keep you right with respect to your personal budget. Nothing can beat. You pay extra to go for the chat, the guidance, the advice, the time that you spend there will save you money. You don't have that either.
Okay, this is interesting though. It's a great comment, because where in British Columbia and pretty much all of Canada, you don't have either angle. You have just a straight liquor store that's controlled the BCL or the Ontario Liquor Board or whatever, and you don't have experts in either field.
Yep.
You don't have a chance to taste the whiskey before you buy. You don't have a chance to have somebody tell you what they know about it, because they know nothing.
Yep.
There's very little passion involved in the actual shopkeepers, so.
And
there's no supermarket.
I suspect that given Canada being such a progressive country, for them to have such draconian liquor laws is rooted in money.
Oh, the taxes that we pay on this, it's just unbelievable.
It's unlikely to ever change.
Yeah.
It's because it's so lucrative now that it's entrenched.
And by the way, I will just say, in the last literally 4 or 5 months, because worldwide inflation is happening right now, pretty much everywhere, everything's gone up. Like the gym, and I'm not calling out products, but something that was the lower price point is now something like Jim Beam is now $8 more a bottle. $6, $7, $8 more a bottle.
Yep.
And that's just, it makes you, if you're going to spend your hard-earned money, you might as well get something you like.
It's interesting to despite the dynamics that you're talking about, that Canada somehow has a huge love for malt whiskey or for whiskey generally. I mean, it's a country that's in love with whiskey. I don't.
Well, and we were talking earlier, like you don't start with this collection. You don't start with it kind of builds, but in previous years, generations before, there was a lot of brand loyalty, because it was, you get something, you like it, you stick to it. And it's almost like that could potentially happen again with inflated prices, because you're not willing to, unless you're us.
Yes.
Whiskey
promiscuous.
But if you're the, exactly. Yeah. But unless you're just the average whiskey drinker, you're going to go, I don't want to risk spending an extra $8 on something that I don't know.
Yep.
And just go for it. Go for your regular, whatever it might be.
And I think, but I think that it leans towards the whole thing about malt whiskey and that idea that it's batch, it's going to be variable. Not only is every distillery going to be potentially very, very different from each other, but each release from that distillery is going to be different. Each batch is going to be different. Let's embrace the batch variation. Charge a bit more, keep it natural. If you want to add color, if you want to chill filter, grain whiskey doesn't need to be chill filtered. Malt needs to be chill filtered. Just chill filter the malt that you're going to put in your blends. and leave the stuff that's going to
Yeah.
be malt form. Just don't stop.
Because
Why
there's
is-
always going to be a market for the blends.
and it's because of the blend legacy. Andrew Usher is an amazing guy who back in the day, back in the mid 19th century, started to mix these things together and bond. But now malts come in and we're trying to follow in the blend legacy. It's a different product. I'm sorry, I keep repeating myself. Anyway,
Sorry,
Luna,
we digress.
echo with Ben. Echo when Ben is speaking. Oh, so sorry, Luna. There's an echo. And Steve Atkins is saying as long as it's Falscraft is saying to Steve Atkins as long as they can. And Hellswood is saying the worst whiskey gin ? Oh, she's been really cynical about Aberfalls. I think we've spent hard-earned cash on. Unfortunately, Doc McAllen Rares on today's theme. In my regular blind tastings with 78 people, always every single time the second cheapest of 6 whiskies wins. He said this before multiple times to me. Don't be fooled by high prices in age, dear Barflies,
For sure.
unless you're not tasting blind. That luxury product, that bling, that ceremony weaves in it. Your brain is your biggest enemy
100%.
when it comes to trying to discern. Sandy McDonald, my friend from up north, myself and the wife are on Isla next week in a camper van. Call in for a dram if you have the time.
This is exactly what I'm talking about.
Fantastic, Sandy. Thank you, buddy. I hope you have a brilliant time on Isla. Which one are you talking to?
Anthony Sillett?
Anthony Sillett is saying, I have been to a Walmart in Canada that was huge, but they sold zero booze, no spirits, no wine, no beer.
Doesn't happen.
See, Canada looks like a fabulous place until you read statements like that. Anyway, everybody, let's put the quiz on. Let's get it on the go. I tell you what we can do for you, my friend, is that you and Ben are up against each other.
Uh-oh.
So not for anything other than, there's no kind of... So we'll tear this wee page out. You can put an ABC on it.
Okay.
So that you show your ABC at the same time. Depending on what you think it's going to be. A, B, and C in the middle, I guess. Good luck, everybody. Here's the key that we had tonight. Number one that Ben was trying tonight and Trenny was the Cotswolds. I think it's a great whiskey. The guys had mixed results with it tonight. Ben put it third. Trenny put it second place. English whiskey, great value. It's coming out there, natural as well. What a thing they've managed to pull off. Tremendous stuff. Aberfalls, they've got work to do there. They've got a danger of falling into the same silly mistake that Penderyn have been trying to dig themselves out of ever since. The idea of being cheap, not nice whiskey, odd whiskey. I think they should have gone for quality rather than quantity first, but hey ho, I have not enjoyed my dram tonight. I'm going to spend some more time with that bottle and I'll update you if my mind changes, but I think there's some consistency that Aberfalls is just a cheap whiskey and they can only ever charge the cheap price for it. I'm afraid that's where they are. The third one, Bunnahabhain Stouratcher, I think it's a decent wee whiskey. It's very, very spirit-driven for me. It's the most kind of hay-lofty that I've had out of it tonight, but it's thick and it's oily and it's heavy. 46.3% as well, £32 I paid for it. These are the prices I paid, by the way. And finally, the one that came out on top tonight overall was Highland Park 12.
I've been
Good
saying
old
it for
rock
years.
solid Highland Park 12, and he gets it 43%. We suffer at 40. I wonder if there's a difference there. There's probably a little difference, but still a good one. Greg's Whiskey Guide is saying Springbank is all about the interesting side of batch variation, unlike many others, probably because their production capacity stays low and ethos remains high. You're absolutely spot on, Greg. They don't care. They embrace batch variation, but they could do a wee bit more than just a bottle etching to tell us what the batches are. We've got to get out our magnifying glass and look at that. It wouldn't take much just to put a wee sticker on or something there. Whiskey with Molly is saying Aquavite. I wouldn't bother. I don't know what he's referring to, but he's probably Whiskey with Molly Ben here.
Okay.
So I don't know what he's saying. I wouldn't bother. Anyway, good luck. Sorry.
Familiar with Aberfalls. He wouldn't bother.
Okay. He wouldn't bother. So he's got his previous experience. Ben, good luck with the quiz. Good luck with the quiz, my friend.
We're gonna do it.
Let's bring this in. Oh no, this is it. This is my countdown for Is It Speyside that we're not going to be playing tonight. Skip ahead to the quiz. 12th of May. I should have updated.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping this is not the 12th of May quiz. I'm hoping it's the 26th of May quiz. Let's see. No, it is. It's today's quiz. We're good. We're in good shape.
Perfect.
Everybody, good luck. I'll try to catch up with the quiz as much as I can. Jimmy Legg is holding court over there. In terms of sales, question one, in terms of sales, which is the number one Islay distillery selling almost 4 million bottles? Is it A, Lagavulin, B, Lafroig, or C, Bamor?
I've got mine.
In terms of sales, which is the number one Islay distillery selling almost 4 million bottles. This is global. It's in terms of bottle sales. A, Lagavulin, B, Lafroig, C,
Do
Bamor.
you want me to say it now or wait till the end?
No. I just you keep it there, and that's fine if you're committing to that. And Ben, after a kind of 3, 2, 1, he's going to hold up the little card.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that important tonight. If you're writing that down, he doesn't need to. But splitting the crowd tonight, actually, Ben thinks it's B, as does Nicholas. A few people thinking it's actually Lagavulin, and a couple thinking. Go ahead.
See, and it's funny because like all those are the answer. I said, can I say it?
Yeah, Ben, what do you think? B, Lafroig,
and I said Bowmore. Bowmore, is that how you say it?
Bamor.
Because again, where I'm from, it's the number one peated whiskey on the shelves. You don't see Lagavulin or Lafroig at all.
And it'll be the number one non-age statement. It'll be the 12. It'll be the.
And it's kind of a little bit more. Yeah.
I let you try a bit more tonight. That was wonderful, right?
It was wonderful.
Yeah. It was the Vault series. Unfortunately, though, my friend Ben is correct. It's Lafroig. It's that ubiquitous Islay. It's that brand. It's. It
would be the one I'd say I would pick probably out of the three, but
no,
out of most
quarter cask. He's just told you his quarter cask story, right?
Yeah, I love Lafroig, but
I love the quarter
number one sell.
But still,
I thought it was Bowmore.
16 on Distillers Edition.
Because don't they also sell to McClelland?
Probably. It's one of the few Islay distilleries, along with Kalila, occasionally Bunahab, and a few others, that you still get, the ability to, they sell to other brands. So the rest of them, not so much. Lagavulin is pretty precious now. But Lafroig is, by quite a wee margin, actually, the biggest seller globally.
Really?
So if you answered B for Lafroig, you get bag a point as we move on to question 2. Which of these distilleries join Clynelish, Kalila, and Glenkinchie as part of the Four Corners of Scotland? This is the kind of Johnny Walkerified, as Scott Monroe would refer to it, part of. So they've picked 4 distilleries across Scotland in tandem with the Johnny Walker Experience in Edinburgh to kind of talk about regionality and regions in whiskey. Clynelish, Kalila, and Glenkinchie. Which is the other? A, Cragganmore, B, Blair Athol, or C, Cardew. All Diageo distilleries. Obviously, I would like to know which one you think is the fourth of the 4 corners. You were quick to answer that there.
I'm going to be honest. I feel like I'm going to be wrong on a lot of these because I don't know the geography of where distilleries are in this country.
Yeah, okay. Yep, that's true. And you're going to know a lot more by the time you go home. Believe me, you're going to.
I hope so.
Yep. But I think right now, you're a Canadian learning a lot.
Geography's a little misleading here anyway, isn't it?
Well, do you think? There's no banana skin here, buddy. A, Cragganmore, B, Blair Athol, or C, Cardew. What did you answer?
I said C.
C, Cardew. And C for Cardew. You can see the lounge is full of C's.
So we must be right. That's like the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire answer.
Gary and Phil or Ian was at the Johnny Walker Experience in Edinburgh just yesterday. I hope you enjoyed it, buddy. But
and that's one of the few distilleries I've been to.
Cardew?
Yeah.
Well, I think you've probably noticed a big difference at it now because Scott Monroe did a drive-by recently and he said it's all been Johnny Walkerified.
Yeah. I was there in 2013. It was getting there. Well, they've invested a lot, I'm sure, but it'd be interesting to see whether it's benefited. Okay, so I'm 1. So
1 for 2, 50%. You'll take it.
Doing great.
Question 3: Which birds famously delayed the construction of an island distillery in the 1990s? This is pretty tough for you, is it?
Let's just see it.
Which birds famously delayed the construction of an island distillery in the 1990s?
Island distillery, the construction of an island distillery. Oh,
I'll give you a wee clue.
It's one of the newer. Well,
I'll give you a wee clue. There were only 2 distilleries in Scotland opened in the 90s, and only one of them was on an island. The first 5 questions are usually quite easy. A, kingfishers. B, eagles. Or C, puffins.
Oh, so I got to guess the bird.
Yeah, not a distillery. Yeah. But genuinely, they were in construction, and these birds were there, and they had to stop in order
Oddly,
to let.
I think that multiple choice was more helpful to me than giving me options for distilleries, I think.
Probably.
Do we know the distillery? Can we say that?
Yeah, you can.
Or does that like?
What do you think it is?
I have no idea. What was built in the 90s for Isla Distilleries? Was it
Speyside Distillery opened in 1990, and Arran opened in 1995. So the only island distillery is Arran.
I was just thinking Isla for some reason.
Yeah, it's island. Yep.
Yeah.
So it was Arran.
Those birds are still present on that island, aren't they?
Yes, they come back every year.
Really?
Eagles.
Okay,
Yeah,
I guess the A, which was Kingfishers.
I'm looking for it. There they are. There they are.
The Eagles.
Yeah, and even on the new Arran branding, they've still got the Eagles in there. So
hey, I'm pleading ignorance here. I didn't even know you had Eagles here.
Golden Eagles. Yeah,
we have the American bald eagle.
Yeah. Well, we've got a couple of eagles. We've got golden eagle and sea eagle, a white tail thing. I don't know, we've got a couple of eagles, but they're still very rare and quite cool to see. But there you go. Quite an easy question.
If you're trying to ever get through the border from the United States to Canada or vice versa, you just say that you're coming to the country to save American bald eagles. I'm like, yeah, go ahead, go through. Just go through.
Is that the trick?
Oh, that's the trick. You could have cases upon cases of whiskey with you, and you're fine.
I'm here. The whiskey is very important to the bald eagle conservation.
It's huge. It's huge.
Question 4: which distillery has batch releases in concentric numbers over 4 styles of classic, special, peated, and innovative ranges? Concentric numbers over these 4 styles. A. Shelter Point, B. Still Waters, or C. Two Brewers. Am I indulging my guest this evening?
I feel like I have to know this one.
Yeah, you should know this one.
I'm not even sure I understand the question.
Well, we touched on it tonight. I hope it helps you a wee bit.
Basically, they release their
whatever they release as a concentric number.
Has a how do you say it?
A concentric number.
A style to it. The classic, the special, the peated, or the innovative.
So 25, there's no brand on this. 25 is a peated. 27 is innovative. I've got 3 here. I got these sent these from Jason at Dramfies. 28 is special. 30 is peated. 27 and 31 is classic.
I look forward to you seeing what your opinion is of those 4.
You have to give us a guess, Ben. C.
I'm relying on a BMO here. Just answer C.
Just answer C. He's saying Ben. Just answer C, Ben.
It's a good guess. Just answer the second half of Trenny and.
Yeah, there you go. Trenny and Two Brewers.
Yeah, Trenny and Two Brewers. Actually, Two Brewers, get in touch. We could kick C out of this.
The first 5 are supposed to be a little bit gentler, a little bit easy. It's going to get tough.
After more than 5.
Here's the picture question coming up. We have a Scottish distillery this time. But which Scottish distillery could we be looking at? I think you might be guessing here, big guy.
It's big.
Are we looking at Clynelish in the Highlands? Are we looking at B, Tormore in Speyside? Or C, are we looking at one of only 3 distilleries to be given the royal name, Royal Bracla? Clynelish, Tormore, or Royal Bracla?
Just going to give the people a second to answer. Then I might.
That's okay. If you're going to use the lounge, that's absolutely fine because the lounge uses the lounge. So it happens. It's like golf. You're only playing against yourself.
But so far we have C, B, and not A.
Jimmy Legacy, not A.
Okay, I think I got to go with the general consensus on there. Oh, now it's changing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ben, what do you think? What we're looking at? You think?
I'm going to go with C. I know it's not A. I've been to A, but I'm not sure on the others.
Okay, I'm also going with C.
Spot on. Royal Bracla.
Oh,
Royal Bracla. Nice.
Thank you, people out there.
Take it. Luna Allen's saying, I think non-native speakers don't know what concentric numbers are.
Yeah. No.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
30 follows 29 follows 28.
Meaning, yeah, they're in a row.
Yeah. Sorry, Luna. Question 6. This is a dram face question. Which distillery has released £120 non-age statement offline edition? This is called the offline edition.
So you can get it in supermarkets and off. Is that offline?
No. This is way crazy. This is just beyond.
I will say, like, you can't even get online versions in Canada. So
right.
You should let him keep guessing and see how long it takes him to get there.
To get what works out. It includes an aluminium tube inside a cardboard box for dropping in your phones. That gives a Faraday cage. It locks out the 5G signal. I don't know how it is on 3G and 4G, but it locks out the signal so that you can have downtime away from your electronics. For phones that don't have
this from
off buttons.
Planet Earth, or
this is genuine. This is a real thing.
Okay. I'm going to look at the answers.
Was it A, Glengoyne, B, Tamdhu, or C, none? This is a wind-up.
I mean, I would have to guess C, but there's got to be an answer.
I kind of wish it was C.
This sounds very like conspiracy theory-ish.
I think there's been a genuine thing. There's been a request. The request has been fulfilled. Then we've said, okay, we've got this thing. We'll put it out there. But the press release came out and it was kind of had a Father's Day thing. Oh, consider it for Father's Day and things like that.
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Is it close to here?
Much closer.
Okay, I've got my answer, Ben.
Well, Ben's got this. He knows.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to go first then.
There's lots of comments coming in on the chat. I think it's atonal. I think it's clumsy. I think it's a shame. And I think when everybody's cutting down on packaging, this oddball thing comes in. And I think in so many counts, it's telling people to switch off. Let's not forget that it's £120, £50 just for extra packaging. Anyway, it is unfortunately one of my favourite distilleries, one of the closest distilleries to my heart. Is not just north of Glasgow, Glengoyne, still one of the prettiest wee distilleries you can ever go and visit. But yeah, it's a shame. I'll show you an image of this thing. Here it is. Here's a phone going inside the aluminium tube inside the box.
Well, did you hear about that thing? I think it's in the United States where people order this box that goes around their like their router or whatever to block out 5G signals.
Oh, yeah.
But it turns out it also just turns off all their Wi-Fi. So people pretty upset about that.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, honestly, all you need to do to cut out a 5G signal is go to the toilet. I mean, it's a really ridiculously weak signal. It needs almost line of sight. It's I don't know what this 5G is all about. Falsgraph is saying Sutton had a look if it came up out on April 1st. No, unfortunately, it's just very, very recent. It was just shocking.
It's real and recent.
Question 7. Which change of legislation first permitted? It's going to get tricky now. Which change of legislation first permitted Andrew Usher II to blend malt and grain spirits under bond? This is literally what produced the Scotch whisky market that we see today. Was it the Spirits Act of 1860? Was it the Excise Act of 1823? Or was it the Wines and Spirits Bill of 1880? Guessing?
I'm purely guessing, but I feel like it's going to be that.
So Andrew Usher II was able to take grain whiskey as a backbone, add malts to it, and produce a consistent product on theme of tonight for the first time ever. And this is what we have. So literally, even back then, they knew that malts were way more inconsistent than they are today. They're much more consistent than they are today, we're led to believe. But back then, this is how they overcame that. That's how they provided consistency, by making something that was not malt. And yet here we are today, making malt whiskey and trying our hardest to crowbar it into being this consistent product. Take it away.
Okay, my answer was A, the Spirits Act of 1860.
Ben?
I've also kind of guessed A.
Absolutely spot on.
Yes.
The Spirits Act of 1860. The Excise Act of 1823, that's when you could apply for a license for distillation for £10, completely transformed the Scotch whisky production landscape. It banished illicit distilling, or it marked the end of illicit distilling and smuggling. It didn't mark the end of illicit distilling, but the smuggling business that was going on. And the Wines and Spirits Bill of 1880, I invented. Anyway, it was absolutely A. Give everybody a point. Question 8. How many distilleries have a malting floors in operation on Islay?
Oh, on Islay. Shite.
Well, I've got a chance. You've only got...
Well, okay, how many distilleries are there on Islay?
9.
9? Because there's 8 last time. Okay.
Yeah, there were 8, but now Ardnahoe's open. So there's 9. Port Ellen's on its way. Port na Trún's in construction.
Port Ellen's reopening?
Yes. Wow. Okay. Port Ellen's coming back on.
The more time you spend in Scotland, the more you learn.
Yeah, there's a premiumization opportunity there, so I don't think Diageo are going to miss it.
No, of course not.
2, 3, or 4. A2, B3, C4. How many malting floors are in operation on Islay? If I can list the distilleries if it helps.
Well, I feel like I know all of them except maybe the 9th one.
Ardnahoe?
Yeah, never done that.
Yeah, it's new. It's brand new. It's on the road to Bunnahabhain.
Okay.
You'll see it if you go out there. I don't know if you've got plans to go to Islay this trip.
Okay.
Ben, what do you think?
B3.
Yeah, that's what I guessed too.
Kilhoman.
Exactly. Ben, spot on. Bowmore, Lafroig, Kilhoman. B. Good guess.
Good random
Spot
guess.
on. Lafroig, Bowmore, and Kilhoman. Terrific stuff. Most of the lounge kicked it out the park. Does even a small one count? It does count. And there are a couple out there that do have wee tiny malting floors that may or may not be in permanent operation. But we're looking for the ones that are known. So Benriach and Balvenie and on the mainland, of course. Question 9, second from last. Oregon White Oak or Gary Oak has recently become synonymous with which of these distilleries? A. Stranahan's, B. Westward, or C. Westland?
I was going to say it's got to be like an American style, but okay.
Oregon White Oak or Gary Oak, which is different from Quercus alba, as we would know it, the American White Oak.
We are specifically Salt Spring Island, where I live, has one of the largest Gary Oak reserves.
So you're very familiar with this oak.
I'm familiar with oak. I'm just not familiar with which distillery it might be. Okay, I'm going to go with
Gary Oak or Oregon White Oak has recently become synonymous with which of these distilleries? A. Stranahan's, B. Westward, or C. Westland?
Okay. My guess is going to be C.
Ben, also upside down C. Terrific. Westland. And yes.
Oh.
And McAllen Rare Doc is spot on. He's saying Quercus Gariana or Gary Oak. And Westland actually tried it in the pot still this very week.
So
Greg Schwartz bought me a Gariana Westland. So I think it's Ben Hoffman. Is it Hoffman or something? I can't remember the guy's name, but yes, that's the answer I was looking for. So we've only got one more question to go. And the bad news is that the last question is always an asshat question.
A what?
An asshat question.
Perfect.
Named from Nova Scotia resident Jimmy Legg. He called it that, and it's deliberately obtuse. It's deliberately meant to be awkward and difficult. And it is a wee bit tonight as well. Let's see how the scores are doing. Oh, look at this. There's going to be a chance of a 10 out of 10 tonight. I can see it already. Look, Ben, Whiskey with Molly on 9 out of 9. Gino Cumeau in Canada on 8 out of 9. Peter Box on 8. Too Slow on 8. I think it's been a good quiz tonight. Ben, how are you scoring?
I'm 9 out of 9, but I've got to thank the Barflies for 2 of them.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Nicholas is on 9 out of 9. Malt Millions and Minions. Chuck is on 9 out of 9.
I'm 7 out of 9, so
you're
cruising.
Cruising. Yeah. Jerry Miller is saying is on 9 out of 9.
Graham Young's going to be 9 out of 9 right now.
Yeah. Don McCausland, lots of 9 out of 9, there's a 10 out of 10 emoji. Remember, if you're a Barfly, you'll be able to light the chat up with the 10 out of 10 emoji if you do manage to score a 10 out of 10 tonight. But there's the ass hat emojis coming up. So here comes the ass hat. Okay. It is a wee bit of an ass hat tonight. I apologise for anybody. I'm going to tear the carpet out from under some feet tonight. Apologies. Approximately, how many Scotch distilleries were operational 150 years ago? Was it A, 3 times as many as today? Was it B, about a quarter of today's count? Or was it C, about the same as today, minus the English malt distillery count?
Oh, man.
That's where the ass is. I told you, isn't it difficult? So I'll let you pause for a second while I enjoy a wee sip of this really quite delicious Two Brewers.
Okay, well,
I'm enjoying
150 years ago. How long ago? That was like 1860
thereabouts.
something. 75.
Yeah, thereabouts. Yeah, approximately.
I feel like regulation changed things.
I do have a source for this for anybody. If I get called out on it, I'll put the source in the description underneath. I think I've got a tab open with it. Ben. Our man has put that he's committed to his answer. Trenny's got his answer on paper. 3 times as many as today, about a quarter of today's count, or about the same as today minus the English malt count.
So this is legitimate distilleries, right? This is licensed.
Yeah, and Greg Whisky Geek is saying, I don't understand C. So I'm saying about the same number as there is today, minus the amount of English malt distilleries that I've already spoken about tonight in tonight's stream. If you want a wee bit of help there, it was 34, but there's a brand new PDF that Tom Lindsay sent to me that's telling me the fact I told you earlier, 40 distilleries in England now, 40 distilleries. And if I've got a link to that PDF, I'll link it. Cooper King Distillery in England put together a really nice infographic showing you where all the English malt distilleries are, and we're up to 40 now. So I'm saying it's about the same as today, minus that count of 40, if that helps anyone.
I'm
Ben
going,
is saying,
going with C. I think it's the only one that makes sense to me. The Barflies seem fairly split.
I went A.
3 times as many as today. 150 years ago, there were approximately 111 distilleries in operation, which is somewhere in the order of approximately what we have today. We're around about between 130 and 140 today, minus the 40 that you have in England today. So it is a pure ass hat, and I apologise to everyone. Here's the infographic I was telling you about. If I've got a link to this, I think I've got a link to this. I can drop it in the description box below. It's a really good one to have.
And my thought process was there was probably way more regulation today, so there was way more back then.
Yeah, you're much more granular, smaller distilleries and things. That's right. And it's if you look at the capacity they were producing back then, it was the population was much, much smaller.
Canada's only been around for 150 years.
Yeah.
Technically.
Well, it's in terms of
basically
a developed country. Yeah.
Britain being a part of it.
Okay, Ben, for 10 out of 10, you made it, buddy. You made it.
Yeah, now I've got to work on doing 10 out of 10 without relying on Barflies, I guess.
Oh, you did it. Good job.
You did it. Let's see who else we've got on 10 out of 10. We've got come on, who else managed? Steve Atkins got 9 out of 10. Damn, Jerry Miller. Sorry, Sugar Kitty on 9 out of 9. There must be some 10 out of 10s. Come on. Ben for the 10 out of 10. Mr. Lee for 10. Peter Lee got a 10 out of 10. Did you manage it, Peter? 9 out of 10. Black Fen is happy with that. Absolutely superb. Graham Young on 9 out of 10. Graham Aitken on 8. Still a pass mark. X2X Scotch. I just jumped there. Did you see that jump? It's horrible when it happens. There we go. Yeah. XS to Scotch. Still a pass mark.
Whiskey with Molly.
Whiskey with Molly. Ben is celebrating. So one of another Ben gets a 10 out of 10 tonight. Peter Lee has managed a 10 out of 10. Fantastic. Penny in the slot is saying 2 out of 10, but I'm steaming. Well, come back and give it a try when you're sober and see how you get on tomorrow. You're still able to type.
Well, I mean, the good thing is you might not remember your answers tomorrow, so you just do it again.
Do it again, yeah. Matthew Renke has got a 9 out of 10. I'm always happy with that.
Trenny and I combined for about 16 out of 10.
There you go. Good job
there.
Good job, C. Good job, C. We won't tell C what we're going to be drinking after we go live tonight.
I mean, I might just sneak in a video of some of the bottles we have here,
and send them some little images or whatever. Listen, I've had a lot of fun tonight. That was good fun. Congratulations to everybody. Some terrific scores. And I hoped that it was going to be a nice, manageable quiz after Menno's brutality last week. Menno put us through the mill last week, but it's always good fun. Steve Atkins is saying 9 out of 10, but that still hurts. Oh, sorry, Steve. Is that because of the ass hat at the end? I do apologize. That's exactly what it's designed to do, but I know sometimes it smarts a wee bit. Apologies. Ben, please don't disappear, buddy. Stay until post credits so that we can relax a wee bit. But I knew when I did this topic tonight, not only would we get somebody else who's on the same island as me, seeing the same thing, same definition between mass market whiskey and much more harder to track down and find, especially if you're like you, Ben, far away from a specialist or whatever. I knew that I would also be able to bring somebody on that could give us a nice canny. It was even listening to him just relaying the notes and what he's got out of it.
He's got some notes on him.
I watch Ben to relax with whiskey. It helps me. You said it.
We've talked about it. So I should just mention, it is a positive thing. It's whiskey meditation, I call it.
Yes.
Because sometimes you sit down with 4 or 5 whiskeys and you shut everything else out, your phones, technology, the television, the outside world, and you just concentrate on the nose and the taste.
Do you need
to write down notes if you want? You can do it however you want, but it's that whiskey meditation, and it's important.
Do you need a Glengoyne Faraday cage tube in order to shut off and do that?
You might need like a tinfoil hat also.
Yeah. Jimmy like is saying, don't disappear. Was that a shot at Ben's tan? Yeah. Ben and tan. Ben is northern England as well. He's almost Scottish, but to be Scottish, he has to be pale blue, Jimmy. Fantastic. Listen, I hope you've all had fun tonight. I've had a lot of fun tonight. I'm going to just finish this Do Brewers. I do think it's fantastic. Graham Young, thank you for this treat. It's a peach of a bottle of whiskey. Wherever you are in the world, whatever you are faced with on a shelf, the ABCs are crucial, right? A for age statement, B for bottling strength, C for chill filtration, and D for dye. Is it coloured? That's going to serve you well, because if you are in a supermarket, there's a good chance that a lot of those whiskies are there as to be a price point whiskey. There's nothing wrong with that, but you do need to be aware. You don't want to get caught out with something that is particularly young, raw, and not quite there yet. I know that sometimes you don't have that definition, you don't have that guidance. You need to pick up that bottle and look a wee bit. We're here to help you. We're here to give you these little mnemonics, these little acronyms, ABCDs, whatever you want to call it. But it's all whiskey. How it's presented doesn't need to be how it's enjoyed. If it's malt whiskey, I think it needs a wee bit more care. It needs a wee bit more flavour. It's doing a different thing. And unfortunately, we are still following in a legacy of blends, and that's just the way it is. But we have proved tonight that some of them are tasty.
Well, and I just want to add to that, it's all about the moment you have with the whiskey. No, none of us can tell you how you feel about a whiskey anyways. So if you have a moment with it and you love it, all the power to you.
If you, me, and Ben managed to sit down in front of a fireplace with a bottle of this, and that was always about, we would have a perfectly great time.
Absolutely.
It's not suggesting that this is not drinkable or anything.
Exactly.
Let's sit down with this one instead.
Yeah.
But absolutely, as he's proven tonight with the Tullibardine, flavor.
It's pronounced Tullibardine.
Can you let's just say Tullibardine?
Tullibardine,
yeah.
Tulla?
Yeah.
Tullibardine.
If you say Tullibardine, nobody's going to care. Don't worry about it. Fantastic.
Okay, I've heard Bunnahabhain be called lots of weird things.
Yeah. Listen, I didn't imagine that this could ever happen, but it did.
It's
terrific.
This is awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Ben, my friend. Thank you so much, buddy. Thank you.
Great to meet you, Ben.
And to all the terrific and amazing, beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated Barflies out there, like every week, you're all very dearly loved. I look forward to welcoming you back. Not next week, probably. It's probably going to be the week after that. But I will try and make sure that you've got some place to go next Thursday night.
I'd say probably tune into Trenny C next Thursday.
Oh, okay.
We have to make it happen now.
Well, are you in Scotland next Thursday?
What day? What's the date?
Okay, so this is next Thursday going to be the 2nd of June.
That might be hard.
Right. Okay. So he's promising something that he might not be able to deliver.
Tune in, wait around.
If there is some place for you to go next Thursday, if I can arrange it with Ben or Shayla, whoever, Trenny C, whoever it's going to be, I'll let you know in advance. Thank you all for hanging out with me and Ben and Trenny.
Cheers.
On another Thursday night. Slanchiva, everyone. Thank you, folks. Cheers.
Cheers. I'm all
empty glass.